Yeah, vape stuff too, because that's usually what makes the most money.
Tinctures, edibles, all that coffee, it looks like. So
It
we got
looks like they're actually
sustainably
that's actually
farmed
not what they're focusing. Yeah, it is more just the CBD
CBD.
oil itself. Yeah.
This, like, it's always hard to judge CBD and weed type stuff because they're either just fucking rolling in it or they're about to go bankrupt. I have yet to see a like in between. There's never a like, yeah, we're doing pretty well for our business. That it's always either run by potheads and they're gonna go under next week, or they're killing it and they're gonna be great. We've got Audible, which this could literally just be a I sign up and like if
Yeah,
you
that's nothing.
like I can make an Audible
They
link.
don't actually get money from Audible, basically, I'd assume.
Blinds.com. That's a little ironic, I think. Blinkist,
So no, they literally just have all these crappy sponsors who give like
Blue
single
Aprons,
episode bonuses.
Brooklinen. These aren't even single episode bonuses. Like I'm saying, man, you just have to
No, no,
have an
that's
Audible account.
this like they say this thing is sponsored by Blinkist this time. It's like yeah, they
Oh
give them
yeah.
like $200 for that ad read.
Just Coffee, Liquid IV. Liquid IV.
Basically,
No, that's yeah,
all these like sponsorships amount to single video things that get their staff through the day.
right. The
Yeah.
Quip one might be bigger because I know if they're actually doing ad reads, I know Quip does pay out pretty well.
Mm. And the
Zip
thing is like all the
Recruiter,
people have done it. I don't know. Oh, is that it?
Third Love, yeah, that's it.
Oh.
With more than 80 sizes, including their signature half cup sizes, Third Love designed bras with breast size and shape in mind for the perfect fit and premium feel. What? Why? What?
It's a fat bras company.
Shouldn't the third anything be related to men?
It, why is the majority report
You know,
who
I should start a
features
brand of undergarments called Third Leg.
third leg? Yeah. Um.
Live in comfort with your third leg.
Yeah. Right. Are you tired of that big old donger hitting you in the knee?
Are you tired of poking out through because you wormed it around too much?
Did you
And then
buy
you
10
actually
inch
showed it
inseam?
to children.
Have they not been sponsored by Raid yet?
No.
Not that I
It doesn't
saw.
align with their values.
Apparently. You think they turned down Raid because capitalism?
I can't buy.
They're funded by actual narcotics company.
Right?
If you think about
A
it, it's like,
literal
oh, does that live up to your?
class.
Wait, wait,
I mean,
oh no, you could have had the you could have Oh no, you
That's-
had
that's
you
literally
have
the funny
Lucius
part.
move forward.
About all of this is
I
the
love Lucius.
you've got people that fight over like ideals. They're like, "Oh, I like free speech." And it's like, "Nah, I don't think you do. I think you just like certain things when it comes to free speech." Very few people are actually like really staunch about a position. So like um right of the child, when we're talking about like abortion, a lot of people are they'll say I'm for the rights of the child, but really they just don't want a human life to get killed, or they'll say I'm for the rights of the mother, but really all they want is for the ability to kill the kid. So it's not they'll say the right that they think they're fighting for, but that's not really what they're looking
But
for.
isn't a
And so
kid
like
though?
well
Yeah, just
But
like
isn't a kid though?
you can debate that at least.
I mean I've
But
said
like
this one before, but you know, states' right to what? That's my response. A woman's right to what?
a woman's right to what?
A woman's
Exactly.
right to what?
But it's like she's against capitalism and she's against this when it comes to uh the making fun of Tim or saying that Tim has more money or is able to do more stuff, but she would be all for them getting more money if the company's giving them money aligned with their views. Like, assuming that her argument is
Yeah,
true
like
and we
weed.
didn't just look at the actual truth behind their sponsors. But yeah, it's just like if something aligns with what you believe and feel, you're gonna be okay with it or fight for it, even if it goes against something that you literally were arguing about a second ago.
evidence is a body of objectively
Well,
verifiable
let
data
me
that
tell
is
you how to tell you.
that is positively
But this is
indicative
so
of.
important. But what are you living for?
I need to tell you what evidence is before you can figure out if you can show me any, right?
Right, I'm not asking you that. I'm asking you the question. You're asking us for evidence, but what is the evidence that what you are living for is true?
I was
He's
trying
gonna
to
invoke
tell you
invasion.
that.
Okay, so
He's
tell
just
us.
going to invoke
Body of
invasion warfare.
facts, objectively
So
verifiable
what are you
facts
living for?
This is the cult
Telling you.
that are positively indicative of or exclusively concordant with one position over any other. That's what evidence is.
No, that
Now,
isn't.
when you, yes, it is.
No, it isn't. You're talking
it
about.
up.
No, it isn't. Here's your problems in here. Let me come as a
this guy a
non-moral,
dictionary.
realistic thing. You are speaking as a theoretical computer scientist and a Christian zealot. Here's why you're wrong. You use words. You use words like proof, logic, and trust. You attack us and trust. If you understand semantics and mathematics, you would know semantics leads to proof. Proof is necessary for logic. Logic is necessary for trust. If you're telling me you're making a claim.
I haven't used any of those words today.
I'm reverse engineering your
Yeah,
thought.
but I haven't used any of
Gödel's
those words
incompleteness
today.
theorem.
Proof, logic, and
Gödel's
trust.
incompleteness
I did not
theorem.
say
I'm
any of those
inferring-
words
I'm
today.
inferring your
Let's
thought
go
on
back to the
reverse
Big Bang here.
engineering.
Let's go back to the Big
No,
Bang.
no, not the physical, just the logical.
Let's go back to the Big Bang.
Gödel's incompleteness theorem tells me
It doesn't-
all propositional magic,
He agreed
including
that there's a
all
cause,
words
that's
you
not
use,
correct.
including all words you use, and the entire semantic graphs are not closed. So therefore, what is God? God is the ultimate superset of all closures of what you call
God is a
logic
magical,
and
anthropomorphic
proof.
immortal.
Logic and proof.
That's what God
So
means.
you're
That's what the
using
word
words
God
and
means.
rationality.
And it says all that in the Bible, does it?
No, it doesn't have
No,
to
it
say
doesn't,
that in the
exactly.
Bible.
I did not-
So
What
your
it does
argument
is
is
it
just
dismisses
nonsense.
I'm
it's
right
a
here.
pseudoscientific
I don't believe God is a
gibberish.
man.
A
So sometimes you
pseudoscientific
speak to
gibberish.
different people, even though they believe in the God,
You don't
they
understand
have
the
different
beginning of
understanding of God.
science.
Okay, and then so.
Well, can I go back to the
I can
I
just
don't want
tell
to
you
answer.
science.
Sorry, one at a
let's use
time.
the word.
Sorry.
This is man is a
Sometimes I get dismissed the word God.
He's a godless fraud.
Let's talk about a causer or creator of the universe.
Okay, why would you, if you're going to say something exists, okay, we agree something exists. Now, I can come up with a hypothesis that we can test to determine how that came to exist. Or you can just make up that it was a magic guy done it,
Or things can exist that
right?
you cannot
And then
test.
you just tell me that
No,
you're going to
the
believe
things
that.
can
And you
exist
tell
that
me
you
that
can't test.
magic
Rubbish.
man done it,
Poppycock.
right? And that's it. That's all I got. You gave me no
Creative
evidence. You
scientific
just give me the
method.
No, no,
assertion.
because I'm going off your own.
Absolute
You,
rubbish.
you yourself confess to starting
I
point.
confess.
No, wait.
I confess.
No, listen.
He
You
can't
said
confess.
you said it,
Yes, please. Thank you.
you said the universe as a beginning point.
I think so. I'm not a cosmologist. I do evolution.
Yes. So when you say beginning,
slaughtered on the
if I say
ground.
beginning and starting point,
Soil.
it's the same. It's just paraphrasing. It's the same thing. Come on.
What?
Beginning, starting is the same thing.
It's all
Yes.
religion, Rob.
So
No, I'm not. That's not what I'm arguing.
It's all religion, Rob.
Is it cosmologists or cosmogonists now
I mean, it's
are
like a different
debating
case.
whether there is a beginning?
It's all religion, Rob.
the beginning, the Big
Like,
Bang,
like
you know.
Sean Carroll, for example, says the universe. Sean Carroll is a cosmologist, cosmogonist, and he says the universe didn't have a beginning. Period. That it is eternal. And on
I'm
my
asking
own,
what you
my own
say.
understanding, it would be eternal also, but why for a different reason? Because if we take the Big Bang as a thing that actually happened, and we're not certain about that,
Sorry?
then time slows down when you get to
Street hustler doesn't
supermassive
need to
gravity.
understand
Supermassive
science.
gravity has an effect on slowing down time. So if you had all of the universe compressed into a single, or a singularity, if you will, then time slows down such that 1 second equals infinity when t equals 0. That means that the universe, even if it had a beginning, would still be eternal. But that's just one.
I hear so many if, and like I said to you, if you're gonna be scientific right now, these hypothetical jump start, I don't like to hear them coming from a person who proves to be scientific. When you say if so many times, that tell me you just don't know what you're saying when you use if and maybe and all these things.
Okay, so you
Don't use
only
those terms. You
accept.
must be convicted.
You only
don't use
accept.
those
You
terms.
You'll be
only
convicted over something that you're not certain about.
Wait.
Religious people, right, will give you conviction. They don't know what the fuck they're talking about. They're talking out their ass. But,
Scientists give you conviction.
but they have their conviction.
Is expanding
Scientists-
the universe a conviction? Is that a conviction?
Yes, you want to
That's a
believe.
fact.
You want to believe the way
You don't
you
believe the
want to
universe
believe.
expanding?
What?
You don't believe the universe expanding?
That the universe is expanding.
That's
Yes, we
not
have
factual
evidence.
statement.
I didn't understand
There
what
you
you're saying.
go. That's
What do
what
you
I'm
mean,
saying.
there I go? I couldn't understand your accent. I apologize.
You
I
did
didn't know
understand his
when you.
accent. Right, he's speaking plain English, pussy.
He said expanding. I thought he said explaining. So I apologize. I thought he was talking about an explanation.
Don't disrespect him.
I was not disrespecting him.
Okay, that's cool.
I did apologize for misunderstanding what you were saying. You were saying expanding rather than explaining. So I thought it was being a circular argument. I get what you're saying now. We have evidence that the universe is expanding. Yes. So I accept that the universe
And
is
the
expanding.
singularity, you have evidence for that as well.
Not as much.
No.
No, and cosmologists are not as certain about that. As a matter of fact, a lot of them are starting to drop the singularity.
So
I like that honesty.
if it's expanding, then from what point it was expanding from? In a
Again,
singular junction?
I don't do cosmology. I do evolution.
Now you
If
get a balloon
wanna-
when you
if
blow
want
and
to talk
it's
about
blowing,
evolution,
you
I'm
go
your
back
guy.
to a singular junction.
If you want to talk
If you
about
deflect the balloon,
automechanics,
it
go
goes back
find
to a
somebody else.
singular
I don't know.
junction.
Yeah,
What?
can I ask? So you were
What?
saying before that you live your life by facts and evidence, okay?
Yeah.
But you,
But wouldn't it be better?
Can I just finish this now? I don't believe you can live your life by black and white scientific evidence. Say you marry a lady, okay, and you love her to pieces, but she goes and walks past someone down the street who gives her a bigger chemical reaction in the brain. Because science tells us love is just a chemical reaction in the brain. So she walks down the street and she sees this hunk with a six-pack, and he gives her a bigger chemical reaction in the brain. She runs off and cheats with that man. Are you going to say, well, it was just a bigger chemical reaction in the brain, I don't condemn you, I'm not angry at you? Or what are you going to say to that lady?
None of my business.
Well, first of all, it's not black and white. Very rarely is anything black and white. I mean, religious belief, always dichotomous. I mean, it's always the binary thinking. No. But there are always nuances.
No,
Just continue with that. I want to hear, just let him finish, let him finish.
Sweeping generalization. May I ask you one
Okay,
question?
you believe you go to heaven, you
can
don't
we just-
you go to hell.
Sweeping generalization.
People believe in God, yeah, but they have different concepts of God that alone tell you. So they're religious, the Christian religious, the Muslim religious, but they have different concepts. That means it's not just one generalization. That means that clearly proves that.
Okay.
But several generalizations.
But so why? But then we'll say your actions is of generalizing of what the way you look at religious people. That could be a general. That could be just one religion.
I am generalizing, yes. It's consistent.
But what I'm saying is,
So
if
when
you
you
what I said is true.
you're pointing back at different.
you wouldn't
A
live
religious
your
person
life.
believes on faith.
Big man,
Faith
big man,
means
can I just put
believing
one
things that are
question?
not
Just one.
evidently
To him.
true.
Yeah, just one.
Yeah, yeah.
well,
And why would you want to be convinced of something that is
To
not
him.
evidently true?
Yeah. Just
Yeah,
The
yeah.
scientist that says, faith without science is blind faith.
Yes, I
And
understand.
science-
I understand.
and
And that
science is not
scientist
religion.
who said that, by the way,
Science is not
was
religion.
actually an atheist.
this man wants to ask a question.
Yard man.
Science is not religion. It's
Yard man.
it's
Let
blame.
me answer. So, right, would you say right that is Egyptian myth and mythology is bunkum as well?
Of course. Every
I leave
belief.
it there, my friend. Right.
Okay, so
right.
you
the
wanna-
progenitors of civilization.
Yeah, and their
Right, the
mythology
progenitors.
is still bunk.
Question by saying mythology. Right, sorry. It's called myth and symbolism. Do you know? You actually you studied Egyptian myth and symbolism.
My name is Aaron Ra.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Wow.
Oh, right. Your name is Aaron Ra, right? But you think right that the mythology or the myth and symbolism, right, that gave you that name, right, is a load of shite.
Yes. That's why I
So
chose it.
so you chose that name, right, because it's a load of shite. Right?
Yeah.
Right. And what was the constitution of the ISIS when she reconstructs Osiris? What does that symbolism represent?
I don't know.
But you say that it's shit and you don't know. Explain it.
Yeah, because it's faith-based belief in supernatural things.
Because it's the reconstruction of Egypt.
Can I just add before I go? So, just going back to what we were saying. So, I don't believe you can live your life by black and white scientific
Right, and I
evidence.
just
You
said it's
can't-
not black and white.
Yeah, so what you
we
do in
agree.
those kind of
We
situations.
agree.
Okay.
It's not black and
so
white.
there is more. There's the act of the will. How
No,
does
no, when you
science
say
explain
there
the
is
will?
more.
But how do you?
I don't want to believe
You wanna get-
things.
you wanna
I
get
don't want to be
evidence, yeah.
fooled into believing things that are not evidently true. I damn sure
Can we get
don't
some
want to believe
evidence?
things that are evidently not
But
true.
how do you put relationships and things like that into black and white, into
Okay.
scientific? Because if you
things
think of
that you
wait,
believe-
just one second.
He
Because
doesn't
when you're a
believe
married
in black
person,
and white.
it takes the act of the will, it takes the conscience, it takes these different things to make a marriage work. You cannot just live by evolutionary science. It doesn't work like that.
And it works for every other species but us, right? I mean, why doesn't it also work for us?
But how do you condemn? Would you condemn that woman though who cheats on you?
Listen.
Yeah.
If marriage is
I'm going to be upset with people for various reasons at various times. That has no
Well, yeah, he
relevance
has
to
a
this
chemical
argument.
response.
but by what standard are you going
you
to be
saying-
upset with them? You haven't got a moral standard.
The moral standard that I actually do have and have already told you is the moral standard of where we're
But that's
where
not
we
true
are
for everyone. Go to a swinger party and they don't have the same moral
As
power.
I just told you earlier, when you have people who are defective anomalies because they're selfish, they tend to be ostracized. They tend not to be cherished and supported by their society. That's what the tendency is.
look at Russell Brand.
By what touchstone are you judging the defective? By what touchstone?
The Blarney.
Rather than empathetic.
Why is that wrong? Why is that
Because
wrong?
they're selfish rather than empathetic.
Why is that wrong?
Yeah, exactly. Why is
Because the moral standard is whether you are unnecessarily harming or
it is,
impeding
though?
others.
Who's saying that it's wrong?
disagree that
We do.
No, you do.
Our
But you're
physiology,
putting it down to the
our
individual.
physiology
But I can
does.
stand here.
So that's the, wait, for me,
It's
I'm
the
saying
only
that's
way
a really good
society.
question.
Yeah. No,
Not just one society. Society. The only
Me,
way that
I was just
concept of
mumbling.
society can work is if we are integral parts of
but
it.
you're saying it as an individual, okay?
Can I ask you
So-
one question? Did you create these people here?
What's that?
Did you create all this? Did you? No, it's the same point. Did you give all these people your existence? Life. Did you give them life and give them existence? Did you?
The question is no.
No. So if all these people says, okay, you know that moral standard that you go by, we all in opposition to it.
But you're not. None of you.
Or me, we're not.
None of you have attacked me yet, for example. Right? All of you are acting on the same
Let me
innate,
give you an example.
evolved morality that I am. We all, because we live in society, even if we hadn't evolved, just because we live in society, we all know how we have to behave to be a part of society. Again, not
Who made
black
that
and
rule?
white.
Who?
We're talking about trends and tendencies, right? Statistics.
Who made that rule?
Nobody made the rule. It's emergent. It's an emergent property of society.
Come on, you know this is Europe.
Come on, yeah, I do know. My answer is
They got
correct.
lawmakers. Come on, they got lawmakers.
Come on, the answer I gave you is correct. And if you don't understand, you can say, come on. But I'm still incorrect.
Come on, you got lawmakers.
Why are you saying,
No,
come on?
that's no. You must be truthful in what you say.
I am always truthful in
There are
what I say.
lawmakers
That's
here.
why I'm not religious.
No, but why are you saying that? Why are you saying that?
See, we wouldn't do that.
No,
Because what
no.
you're saying there is you're at a higher level to us
Because you're going to go to heaven and I'm not. Because you're personal friends with the most
But I'm
powerful
not
being
saying
in the
that.
universe.
You're just touching me there. I'm not saying that.
Sometimes you-
I genuinely, and you might
have
say
to
I
show
would,
the policy
I genuinely love
sometimes
you.
in
I will go away and I'll pray for you.
But
I
he's
care
not
about
saying
you.
he's better
I'm
than
not
me.
saying I'm better
He's
than
only
you.
saying
I'm
he's
not.
better than me.
Look, it's only the grace of God why I'm saying.
The fact that you
look,
think you can affect some kind of outcome by praying for him shows that
I
you think
can't.
that you're.
I can't
Well, why are
do
you
it.
going to pray for
He's
him?
your guru.
That's
why you're
what I'm saying to you, it's only the grace of God why I'm here. I've not done anything to earn my salvation.
Everything I can tell, everything I would tell you about evolution show that it's true.
He's your guru.
You bring it back to evolution, though.
Yeah, there's a reason for it. Because I can't show you that there's no God. I can't prove a thing doesn't exist. I can show you the nothing that it's not in, but that doesn't prove anything, right?
Right?
Exactly. I can when I say things about evolution.
It's the Christians who always end up fighting each other. That's the thing.
Sort of concept. The burden of proof has to fall.
Yeah,
Has to
that's
fall
not
on
an
us.
atheist concept. That's universal. That's the
You know,
rule.
I said this is a claim, right?
Is it at least streaming? Okay, because it's complaining about my
How are you backing
keyframe.
up that truth claim?
By Hitchens' razor.
By Hitchens' rate. So you're backing up by another man.
That's just there to wind up.
Yeah, we're talking about logic again, right? So if you claim
But
anything,
how does your highly evolved monkey mind say, how can you say you're rational when you've got a highly evolved monkey mind? If that,
not in, but that doesn't prove anything.
why I'm here, I've not done anything to earn my salvation.
Everything I can tell, everything I would tell you about evolution show that it's true.
He's your guru.
You bring it back to evolution, though.
Yeah, there's a reason for it. Because I can't show you that there's no God. I can't prove a thing doesn't exist. I can show you the nothing that it's not in, but that doesn't prove anything, right? Exactly. I can when I say things about
But
evolution.
again, that's just an
because I know he doesn't accept- Hold on.
atheist's own sort of concept. The burden of proof has to fall.
Yeah,
Has to
that's
fall
not an
on
atheist
us.
concept. That's universal. That's the
You know,
rule.
I said this is a claim right here.
It is. It's a claim. You're making a truth claim.
twice-
And what?
yeah.
How are you backing up that truth claim?
By Hitchens' razor.
By Hitchens' rate. So you're backing up by another man.
That's just there to wind up.
Yeah, we're talking about logic again, right? So if you claim
But
anything,
how does your highly evolved monkey mind say? How can you say you're rational when you've got a highly evolved monkey mind? If
because
that's
I
what
have
you're
a
saying.
highly evolved monkey mind.
But you're saying to reject God, you're using a monkey's mind.
That's
And
right.
it's fine.
And to imagine God, which is what you're doing, you're using a monkey's mind.
But I'm not.
And you are
I was made in the
susceptible
image
to
of God,
a
and
deep-
so are you.
No, you're not. There is no God. You are a monkey. And we can prove it.
Did God make your mind?
I mean, I don't mean you came from monkeys. I mean, I can prove that you are a monkey right
Well, the
now.
way you're acting, you're making me think that there are monkeys now.
Jeez.
I don't. He can believe whatever he wants. I cannot. If I could believe whatever I want, I'd be fucking Thor.
You got because of a belief right there.
I don't have a belief.
You have a belief.
No, I don't have a belief.
You have a belief.
I do not have a belief. A belief, in the terms of a believer, is when you make believe, when you pretend, when you convince yourself. I don't have to do that.
You cannot
I
prove.
can test
You cannot
everything
prove.
that I accept
Listen,
to be true.
Listen, you cannot prove an external give of existence of the universe does not exist. You
I
cannot
can prove that it's impossible. It's
Listen,
logically
my question.
impossible and physically impossible for your God to exist. Impossible.
Well,
Both.
you don't know the creator that I created the universe. You don't know, so can you? You don't know.
Show us.
That alone prove you wrong. Right there, because
You don't know your God. You don't know your God. They're supposed to be the same God. Neither one of you knows him.
I didn't came here with him. You don't know so many things.
You know that.
No, you don't.
Sorry,
What you know is what you can show. If you
How can
can't
you
show
say
it,
for
you
certain
don't know
Science.
it.
know?
You know what science is.
You can't do
If
that.
you can't verify the accuracy of your claims to any degree at all, by any means whatsoever, then you don't know it.
But we've just
You
been through
don't
that.
know Christ.
We've just been through it.
Oh.
But you don't know that. You assert it. You imagine it. But you don't know
Science,
shit.
science. In a nutshell,
We've just been
I know. I
through
saw
that.
you do the whole circular argument around yourself, but you don't know Jesus.
in a nutshell, your science is this. You using your positive perception, yes? Whether direct, your positive perception,
Okay.
whether directly or indirectly,
Okay.
to explore and see what you get back in return.
He doesn't speak to you through gospels.
And to see back you,
That's men mythology.
and to see what you get back in return. Yes. So that's science in a nutshell. But with your perception, you also agree that it's limited. Like astronomers says we only
Our perception is limited.
Yes. Astronomers says we can study just a little part of the first event, only just a little bit.
Yep.
So they confess that the scientists that the perception is limited.
So is it fair then?
No. Listen, listen to my question now.
Listen
So
to
how can
me.
you disprove? So if our perception is limited within this 4 dimension, that's that man keep running to a certain
Aaron,
radius,
it's
my
been great
eyes.
to chat to you. I'm gonna get off this.
That man keep running to a certain radius, my eyes cannot see because we're limited.
Okay.
So within this 4 dimension, if we're so limited, how can
Then
you?
we definitely shouldn't be imagining things we can't prove.
listen.
And then asserting that they're true when we can't prove
Let
them.
me just
Because that would be a
let me
lie.
nail my point now.
Okay.
So, with that limited perception, how can you disprove that something or a causa is not there external and outside of
We're
the 4
not
dimension?
trying to disprove anything.
Right? I didn't say that. I said that
Cause.
God,
Just can't
God
prove it.
is impossible, not a cause. A
No,
cause
we're not talking about God. Leave the word at that. I'm saying a causa for the Big Bang.
God is defined.
What is the proof that you are saying that you are affirming there is no God? You can believe
Yes, I
whatever
can.
you want.
Because,
but you
but I
cannot say
can't. I
something.
can't believe whatever I want.
No, yes, you
Other
can.
people believe what they want. I don't.
No, you can.
No,
you
I can't.
And I respect that.
But I
you
can't.
but you
I
cannot,
cannot
but you cannot say
make myself
something
believe things that are not true.
No, what you can-
He can, I cannot.
No,
I'm not
that's not
challenging
true.
that.
You can believe in whatever you want.
I
No,
cannot.
he says that
Because that would mean I would have to
They
lie.
cannot prove or disprove of God.
Some people have
So
the
we
ability
understand. I'm
to
trying to
lie
understand
to
this
themselves and believe
conclusion.
things that are not true. I do
Yes, so-
not.
No, you,
I
what
cannot
we cannot
choose to
do-
believe whatever I want.
But what we cannot
I
do is
am
force
obligated. I am obliged.
No, we just-
It's
yeah, no problem.
obligatory that I change my position when the evidence shows that I am wrong.
Why you have to change your position?
Because it's wrong. If you show me evidence that I'm wrong, I must change my
No
mind.
one has to show you anything. Exactly
Why is it so
the same
difficult to
way
You don't have any
understand?
obligation, but I'm saying it is
I don't
mine.
have to show you
I
anything
don't
because
have the ability.
religion or belief is
I don't
something
have
very
the ability
personal.
to believe whatever I want.
No, this is just what happens when he's allowed
You
out.
can believe, but what you cannot do is say something.
You know,
that-
my mom will
that
make him
is
Christian.
There is no proof of it.
Right.
You cannot
Because there's
prove
not
that
even
there
a
is no
possibility
God.
of
What was
God.
it, sister? Say one
You
second.
cannot prove
There's
that
not
there is
even
no
there's
God.
not even a possibility
No,
of
no, you
God.
can say that.
How can
In
you
order to
know
say
that?
in
No, no,
order
you
to
can't
say
know.
whether
You can-
something
You
is
don't
possible,
have- you don't
I'm
have
answering your
enough
question.
knowledge for that.
I am answering your question.
Yes.
In order to say whether something is possible, we need
I
a
just want him to
precedent
live
or
by
a
his
parallel
standard,
or a
though.
verified
He can say what he
phenomenon
wants to
to indicate that
So
such
he's talking about
possibility
evidence.
I'm
He's
exists.
not,
asking you
when
to
when you
prove.
reason with him, he say he's
Yes,
not
you
talking
are.
about
No, I'm not.
hypothetical. He's not living
I'm
by
You're
not
his
telling me I have to
asking-
prove
no,
this
no,
statement?
No, no, no. You don't
Because I
have
know
to-
if scientists
I
says
don't
that
have
we
to
cannot
prove
disprove
you
our proof of God.
the same way that
So
you
then
don't
why
have to
is in the
prove
person that
me.
he only disproves?
But
I
I
don't
cannot
understand
say,
that.
I cannot put in a t-shirt, atheist doesn't exist.
Okay, so if you come up to
Because
me
you
and you
exist,
tell me
right? So I cannot.
How do you define God?
How do I define God? That's very personal.
Because
I like his t-shirt.
Funny, you'd think if it was really a God, it wouldn't be personal. I mean, it would be like one thing for everybody.
I said, that is an objective fact. The creator is an objective fact. Of this universe, the creator is an objective fact.
I'm sorry, what is objective?
The creator is an objective fact.
Oh, no. A fact is data that we can verify objectively.
People really don't know what facts are, eh?
Slowly with, we're not fighting in it. Want to build slowly.
We cannot call God a fact because he's not. It's not a fact. Right? It is an unsupported assertion. That's it.
I'm trying. Listen to my point, yeah.
My friend.
That's the ultimate wrong.
What's the ultimate? The ultimate wrong is to lie, right?
No.
Do you know that an unsupported, hold on, an unsupported assertion?
I'm a Christian, right?
Okay,
I'm not
great.
trying-
Let me just say
I'm
this,
not trying
please.
to tell you-
Let me just say this. An
An
unsupported assertion has no more credence than a claim that has been proven wrong. So if you make an assertion, God died for your sins, whatever you want to say, if you don't have evidence to show that you're right, you're wrong.
But I'm not telling you.
I don't care.
Can I say one thing?
They
I
really
believe God,
don't
man.
understand
I don't
that
believe God. I
one
don't believe the creator.
doesn't have to
If I
care.
speak with writers, I don't use the word God, I say Jap it out. We talk about cause and I give up existence and the creator for the universe.
Okay.
The cause for the Big Bang that you say you agree with.
Well, I'm not sure about that.
So who caused it? Who you say, all right. For one
I
second,
don't do cosmology. I don't know cosmology. You may as well ask me about auto mechanics. I don't know that either.
I don't want you to deny some point of science
I don't
to
deny
give you
any
a
part
better
of
leap
science.
in the direction that you want
I
to go.
don't deny any part of science. Why would you assume that I do?
Because sometimes, so far, reasoning out. Anyway, leave that. I'm not going to jump to that. Anyway.
Oh.
But you
I told
agree,
you the
you
cosmologists
agree there's a beginning.
I've decided something about you, but I'm not going to tell
certain
you.
about that. So if they're not
You
certain,
can't understand.
because there's debate. I told you that many of them are beginning to drop, or some are beginning to drop the concept of the singularity.
No.
Some, like my friend Sean Carroll, are saying that the universe didn't have a beginning, that it is eternal.
What evidence they give for it? No, what evidence they give for it?
True, because the science doesn't have
No,
all the evidence.
It's about evidence.
All the evidence science has. All the evidence we have came from science.
No.
Okay,
So we don't
so
have the answers. Today they
we have
tell you that
evidence.
olive oil is really
All
good
the
for your
evidence we
health.
have came from
Tomorrow
science.
is telling
We
you
don't
that
have any
sunflower
evidence
oil
from
is
religion.
better.
Yes, but Jesus is all eternal.
Science doesn't know everything.
You have a
Religion
virus.
doesn't
They
know
don't know.
anything.
You know the evidence?
Nah.
Science give evidence for the singularity. Do you understand that?
Yeah.
They give convicted evidence for the singularity.
Can they give what
They-
kind of evidence?
They give evidence for the singularity.
That's all. What we have.
Yes. You have the expanding universe is also a tied in evidence to the
Do you
singularity.
know all the
To the Big Bang.
everything?
And as well as the next that microwave, that next.
Changes.
I remember exactly.
Of course,
Cosmic
because we are
microwave background.
limited.
Yes,
So
it's also
we are-
a tied in evidence.
Yes, we are limited.
But now they're revising what they think the singularity is, so they have to recount. what it is.
Exactly.
No,
because
but if
we
we're
are
going to
limited.
approach this thing with science, and we do science, we're going to use the science
Yes,
method.
because
Right.
if
So
we,
I don't wanna-
if we were unlimited,
Oh, sorry, carry on.
we knew everything.
I don't want to explain. I don't want to entertain a ghost argument. I have an argument at no point here.
Then you should drop religion immediately.
No. You see what you're doing here? We're reasoning about. I'm not opening this book. I don't know with you. We're reasoning.
Okay.
And now we're speaking about science and scientific method right here. Can we reason that
Okay.
too? So there's more evidence. I talk about the singularity and the Big Bang. The other thing that you talk about, the eternal, always existent. Where's scientific evidence for that? Can you pitch that to me?
I told you already. That's where they've determined that supermassive gravity slows down time.
Sorry?
Supermassive gravity slows down time.
Prove that to me.
I'm not a physicist. I'm taking what physicists, professional scientists are saying.
No! Oh, damn it.
Defer to the experts.
So
I will talk. As I
Dude,
said,
I accidentally pressed
over
stop.
and over again, I don't do cosmology.
do you realize?
I do evolution.
Do you realize? Paraphrasingly, you just described the perfect definition of belief a while ago. You say you got no evidence for it.
I know personally. I know Sean Carroll personally. I know a number of physicists. I've shared the stage with Victor Stenger. I have a little bit of most in
I know Kepler. I know them too.
Okay.
I know them too.
You know Kepler.
Yes, I know Hubble too. Hubble, you know Hubble, the guy with the Hubble telescope. You know Hubble.
You know Hubble. You know a guy that died before he was born.
Yes, I know Einstein.
If you know people, does that mean you can just say,
That's not
oh, I know
evidence.
this person. I might know a Muslim. I know lots of Muslims.
Okay.
Does that
Say
mean
you
that I
know
can be
someone is not a
Muslim because
scientific
they tell me
evidence
it's
for
true?
me.
I understand.
I'm going to buy your principle now. When I'm holding you.
It's amazing what evidence they expect from you, but the bull they expect you to believe.
I have to accept that they have reasons I don't understand for why the universe doesn't have a beginning. I know evolution. I can start to
You know
explain.
Martin Rees?
What's that?
Martin Rees talk about the multiverse. But if you read his article, It's all hypothetical jump start. Maybe if. So
yeah, that would be honest, yeah. Because if you don't know, if you can't show that it's true, then you can't say that it's true. I know religion does, because religion is fundamentally dishonest.
We're not talking about religion.
I understand you don't want to talk about religion, because religion is a flaw in humanity. It does exactly
I'm
what
talking
you're
all you got a religious belief right there.
I don't have a religious belief. A religious
proof to me.
Every religion universally accepted as such by both its adherents.
Prove to me universe don't have a beginning. Prove to me. You said universe don't have a beginning. Prove to me.
I don't know. I told you I don't
But you
know.
made a claim.
I didn't make a claim. I said I did not know.
Before you said you take the word for it. That's blind faith.
That's not
you
blind
say you
faith.
take the
Faith is
word.
when you have no evidence. If I have a university full of scientists telling me this is the consensus, that is evidence.
I'm hearing very well. You in your own wording. You
if
said
the scientists tell you.
You said you're taking the scientist's word for it that the universe don't have a beginning.
Right, and
but
that's
you
not
said
blind faith.
But you
That's
said no. Wait,
It's not blind faith,
no,
it's
wait,
evidence,
wait,
but
wait,
it's not complete.
No,
It's not
no,
like you
wait,
know it.
wait,
Right,
evidence.
right. That's why I keep telling him I
evidence
don't
towards
know.
it, yeah.
Right, I keep telling him I don't know cosmology.
No, the full context
But
of
you can't say you believe it because you don't.
And this, ladies and gentlemen, is what it looks like when a real intellectual
the full context of
debates.
his speech is blind faith. It's a belief.
It's not a belief. I don't know. It's not a belief.
I'm using your own wording. You said to me.
I said I don't know.
Give me 1 minute. Give me 1 minute.
And I don't believe.
I won't tell a lie on you. Give me 1 minute. Let me repeat what you say.
don't believe.
Give me 1 minute. Give me 1 minute.
I do not believe.
Why are you scared for me to repeat what you say? Give me 1 minute.
Just don't lie about it.
I'm not lying about
do
you.
Why are
not
you
believe.
scared
I'm
of
not
what
allowed to
I'm
say that
gonna
I believe.
say?
I heard you very well.
Okay, so you're not going to lie about me again.
You said the universe don't have a beginning.
I did not say that. I said cosmologists are now saying, or there are some cosmologists who now say that they don't think the universe had a beginning. That's what I said.
I said, give me a proof. You
I
first you
can
said,
prove that, actually. If you want me to pull up a video where Sean Carroll is saying that the universe doesn't have a beginning, I can do that. Do we need to do that?
a claim, someone saying a projected statement is not approved.
I don't need to.
But the
What do
Bible
I need to
is-
prove? That a cosmologist said he doesn't think the
You
universe.
understand what's a proof is from a
Right.
projected
Do
claim?
I have to prove what I don't know?
He's
Or
not
don't
claiming
believe?
that.
Do I have to prove something I don't
You
believe?
repeating someone claim is not a proof for the claim. You see the difference?
Right. I'm
not
not
trying to
making a
prove the
claim.
Listen.
I'm saying that-
before he's backtracking. If you play it back over, he made the claim.
I didn't make a claim.
He did make the claim.
I did not
And
make a
when
claim.
my brother, when he came back, I let him. He can rewind it.
I did not make a claim.
He made a claim and then he says, I have no proof for it. I'm only taking the scientist's word. You said they're taking their word for it. What does
Right.
that mean?
So that means evidence, which means it's not faith.
Taking someone's word for it with no proof what they give you,
That's
that is
trusting
faith.
the evidence, not faith.
All right.
Faith is a belief that is not based on evidence, that is assumed without evidence and defended against all
Faith
evidence.
is
we
that
under-
my
So we take
brother
Jesus' word for
knows
it. We
the
take
other
God's
one
word
is
for it. We
pain.
just take the word for it same way.
Yeah, you have faith without evidence.
You know that-
I don't. I have evidence without faith. I do not have faith, and you do not have evidence. Let's just make that clear.
Let me give you an example.
You
I have
do not have
evidence.
evidence
Carbon
of
dating, listen, carbon dating prove that Prophet Muhammad didn't exist. So I take his word for it that God exists. Same thing, you take the scientist's word for it.
Carbon dating proved that Prophet
No,
Muhammad.
his point is that you believe Steve
No.
Carroll.
Oh,
What I'm
goodness,
trying
here
to
we
I
go.
don't believe Steve
Spikes
Carroll.
from the
I
best
told
time.
him over and over again, I don't believe Steve Carroll. I said, I don't know. I said, Steve Carroll says he doesn't think the
So
universe has a
science
beginning.
is
Other
wrong.
cosmologists think that it might still. I don't know. I don't have a belief. I don't have faith.
But is Steve
Stop
Carroll
trying to project your own thoughts onto
I'm
me.
not projecting on
Is
it.
Steve Carroll
I
talking
do
to
not
you?
have
Is that
faith.
evidence?
Faith is the most
I'm asking for
repugnant
faith.
thing.
I'm asking
that you
for
can
Is
faith.
that
have.
evidence? Steve Carroll talking about cosmology, that's evidence, yeah?
That's not evidence. That's what I'm saying.
But in the same way, Prophet Muhammad talking to him, that's evidence.
He asked me if I believe the Big Bang is the beginning of the universe.
You said
I don't know.
That's proven
I
scientific.
said this cosmologist says this cosmologist says that. I don't know.
And the cosmologist
That's
speaking is
not
evidence,
a
yeah?
The
belief.
singularity
That
has
is
been
not a
proven
claim.
scientific. There's scientific evidence given for the singularity.
But now they don't know what the singularity is. They may have it. They have a different
Who
idea.
don't know? Tell me who don't know.
Cosmologists again.
What evidence that they don't know?
Call it. Fuck.
You understand what's going on here? It's a convicted statement to say that they don't know. That would
If
be
they say
convicted.
they don't know, I'm going to have to assume
No,
they
I get
don't
that.
know.
He's saying they don't know.
No, you said that they say they don't know. No, you
Right.
said that they say.
That is.
No, you're missing the point. Listen to his wording. First of all, before he said that they say it, he says that they don't know. He
Right.
himself, off his own back, make a convicted statement.
I don't make convicted statements because that would be dishonest.
Listen,
That's
so
why
what
I'm not religious.
Listen, one second. If I say, listen, you don't know my name, that's a convicted statement.
Yeah, a convicted statement like when you said that
think we
God,
stupid here. What
you
you
said
saying?
God is a fact, right? That is wrong.
So
That's
when you-
absolutely false. That was convicted as all
he's
hell,
digressing.
but it was
He's
wrong.
digressing now.
What you
when
said
said
was
a while
wrong.
Ago, when you said a while ago that scientists, they don't know, that's a
Right.
convicted statement.
No, it's not.
Oh.
If they don't know, they don't know. If they tell you they don't know, then apparently they don't know.
Then
It's amazing now someone whose
There's no
home
proof, no
language
proof, they don't know.
or first language
So then
isn't
therefore,
English is telling
we're
the
not gonna
Englishman
entertain
what he's
hypothetical argument,
saying.
ghost argument. So
What do you think?
the universe have no beginning, then drop it. It's a hypothetical argument.
It's
It's
irrelevant.
not science then. It's hypothetical argument.
It
It's
is,
not- it's not- it's not
it is
scientific.
science because they have
No,
evidence.
we're talking about. Remember the premises.
Right.
We're gonna deal with scientific facts.
So
Except
science
for
works
evidence.
like
That's what we're dealing
science
with.
works like a game of 20 questions. So you ask your question. Every new question you ask improves your understanding of whatever it is, right?
I'm teaching you to do science. I'm bridging it. I'm making it tight
Right.
for you.
You're going to teach me how to do science.
Yes.
Okay. We'll just do that.
I don't want no ghost arguments. I
Right.
need fact for
Good.
everything. I
Good.
need
We're going to
proof.
drop religion then because we're not going to have any
Proof.
ghost arguments. So with science, you ask 8 or 10 questions, right? You have a pretty good idea where you're going. By the what is it, 20 questions? By 18 questions, you got a really good idea, but you're still not there. You still don't have what?
Start with the hypothesis then.
Ap-
Start with yeah.
Hypothesis.
Yeah, start with it then. That's what it start with. That's it.
Okay.
Yes.
So like a game of 20 questions.
It's
Yes.
rationality now, isn't it?
Right. So
Emerge
you
back to
get to the
rationality.
18th question, you still don't have all the answers, but you've got it nailed up to this point, right?
Where are those questions stemming from? Where those?
So you have those 18 questions counted.
Now where they're going to, where they came from.
So do you
Where
have
they
those
coming
18? I'm answering
I'm
that. I'm
rewinding you
answering
back.
that question right now. The words that you are interrupting is the answer.
I
to
don't
the
want
question
the
you're asking.
answers.
Those 18 questions asked so far are your evidence for the conclusions you've got so far. Get that?
Where do you get the conclusion? What's the evidence for the conclusion?
It's so obvious that they don't want the truth,
I'm
but
not
they
going to repeat this
argue
answer
it.
again. I'm done.
You conduct experiments, there's outcomes, and with some statistical confidence, you conclude whether something is true.
So you do the experiment before the question or the question before the experiment? Which one comes first?
Well, I mean, when you make an observation, if you're curious to know how things work, you decide.
Do you have to have something in your mind first? Rationality have to come first before you.
make an observation. You're playing with words.
No, you play with words. You play with words. You're not consistent. No, I'm making you be consistent right now. You need to be consistent.
We get an idea.
Right.
So rationality. So you assume rationality first.
What's your point?
What's the point? I'm telling you, assume rationality.
But you here telling us that you.
Watch, see, the Christians are going to beat
Assume
each other up
rationality.
in the end
As I say,
again.
you cannot prove rationality, but you
Oh.
assume it still. That's your catch-22 right there. You see that?
So do we accept rationality or not?
You assume it, but you say you
They
can't.
can't decide on which version, which one of theirs is the real
We
one,
use
but
rational argument
you
for
must
God.
believe.
We use rational argument for God as well, innit? You dismiss it though. But it's okay for you to use rationality now.
I don't dismiss it, but you just claim you have evidence for a man that exists. And you believe
I said carbon dating proof that he did exist. Are you gonna go against that again? We have his descendants as here. We have his grave, we can look at his grave. Huh?
you just proved that he exists. And your whole belief is based on what he said.
You're missing the whole point. I'm speaking.
No, I'm not talking about
Listen, there's a context here. He says he's taking. No, listen. he
See,
says
see,
he's taking the science
you don't
word
even
for it.
have to be there to be
Listen,
for them to know what you're
That's making
saying.
a claim. You take the word for it. That's not.
You got bored and left, but they're still arguing on what he said.
Exactly what he just did.
When not one listened. Are they my relatives too?
In that era, I asked him.
No, he didn't
I
say
asked
that
him.
he
I
he
asked
said
him.
the scientist said this, but he's saying I'm not saying that that's proof. I'm just saying this is what.
I'm just taking the word for it.
He said I'm
That's
not
blind
saying
faith.
that. That's what the, no, but he didn't say that he believed that scientist. He didn't say like that's what the scientist said, so I believe it.
No,
He just
before he
that's
said,
what-
he said it more than he backtracked.
Maybe okay, maybe
You
but
have
he
to clap it.
backtracked.
You have to
So
listen carefully.
Isn't this funny?
The person said the believers are goodness. You have to listen carefully to these people. They backtrack very often. I know they hate this sort of work.
Anyway, what's the problem
You
when
understand?
someone has a position that
I will teach you.
I'm saying.
Now listen carefully.
What,
the burden is on you because you're making a claim that someone was quite about.
and negation can also be a claim as well.
Well, if
What is the claim?
if he has an idea of some scientist who have come up with ideas, and his belief system is around, you have to back to have an understanding of what is true, rather than just some blind faith.
Natural
Then
default.
you can see how what direction.
No, but you're the one who has the blind faith. The one who says there's no creator is the blind faith one. No. Content over everything.
Man, say it straight. Man, don't listen to BBC. Man, don't listen to ITV.
Hi, I'm Aaron Ron.
Listen!
American Atheist, and I am here at Speaker's Corner in London, and this is an interesting place. It's not, we don't have any place like this in my country, unfortunately. A place where people can come and argue about religious beliefs openly. You know, a place like this. I guess maybe we don't have it in the States because everybody has guns. I don't know.
You see?
Yeah, I don't know how well this would work there, but I have a bucket of toast on me.
Hey, I'm Dave. Welcome to my shop. I'm Dave Plummer, a retired operating systems engineer from Microsoft going back to the MS-DOS and Windows 95 days, and I just happen to be the programmer that ported the Space Cadet pinball game that came included with Windows. And today, I spoke with a developer at Microsoft who ultimately removed it from Windows to find out why that was done, as well as to learn the prospects of it ever making a return. I'll tell you both sides of that story, and then I'll show you how to get pinball up and running on Windows 10 in just moments. Finally, we'll test drive it all on a new Windows 11 to see if it still works there some 25 years later. If it does, I'll reveal the secret cheat code that's been left in pinball to give you super user-like powers within the game. Now, I want to be very clear that I take no credit for the graphics, the sound, the table design, the gameplay, the original code even, none of it. It all existed as far back as a Maxis game called Full Tilt Pinball that came out years beforehand. My claim to fame is that I took a game that comparatively few would have ever otherwise heard of, and then I ported it to a platform that would ultimately have more than 1 billion users. They'd all get a copy included for free, and it soon became a formative part of most millennials' childhoods. They say success has many fathers, but I'm content just to be the fun uncle who brought the game to the masses by volunteering to make it all work originally on Windows NT 4.0. The year was 1995, and I was busy working on the port of the Win95 shell over to Windows NT. Now, the shell includes the start menu, the desktop, icons, folder views, common controls, common dialogues, most of the UI that you actually see. Our Vice President, Jim Alchin, apparently wanted to include something in the Windows NT box that would showcase the new graphics and sound APIs that were being included for the very first time. What better way to do so than to include a game that looked cool, sounded cool, and was even fun to play. It couldn't help but to improve the somewhat stodgy image that some folks had of Windows NT at the time. Like Solitaire before it, it would eventually become a nearly ubiquitous symbol of the operating systems that it's shipped with. One day, while I was working on porting the shell, my manager came to me to ask if I would be interested in porting a pinball game from Windows 95 to Windows NT. Sounded simple enough, but I already knew that sometimes moving code from 95 to NT could be challenging depending on how it was written and what APIs it relied on. Still, I agreed simply because I loved games, and so I jumped at the chance to actually work on one again and get paid to do it. My primary specialty on the shell team was the handling of issues related to the MIPS RISC processor, meaning that while we collectively worked to get the Win95 shell working on Windows NT, it was my job specifically to deal with anything that popped up related to the MIPS. Back in those days, Windows ran on multiple non-Intel architectures, including the MIPS RISC, the PowerPC, and the Alpha AXP. You could buy a version of Windows specially compiled for each one. On our team, each processor had a specialist assigned to deal with issues that were unique to that platform, and I was the MIPS guy. In fact, I didn't even have an x86 on my desk at work and ran NT351 on a MIPS machine as my primary dev box. I went straight from the 486 to the MIPS, skipping over the Intel Pentium entirely. Now, by and large, once you had code working on one of the RISC chips, it would probably work on them all, but just getting that far could be challenging because those chips all require that their data be aligned on 32-bit boundaries. In the land of x86, however, you know how the song goes. Everybody's sacred, everybody's great, everybody's wasted, Bill gets quite irate. All right, no, nobody ever really said that, but most x86 code does tightly pack its variables in on byte boundaries, which just doesn't work on RISC. The long and short of it, however, is that if I got the game working on my MIPS box, it probably would pretty much work anywhere. There were just a few problems, however. First, the code was rather opaque in places. It wasn't code written in-house by us, it was game code that Microsoft had bought from someone, and it wasn't written in the style to which I had become accustomed, let's say. Game code really often isn't because it's often single version code. Whereas with an operating system, it's version after version built one atop another, many games are one and done affairs where code maintainability and readability aren't always top priorities relative to being really fast and shipping really soon. The big uh-oh moment came when I looked at the code for the sound engine. Now, it's not that there's anything wrong with the code. I'm sure it was perfectly cromulent x86 assembly, but x86 code did me very little good on the MIPS, the PowerPC, and the Alpha. An operating system like Windows is 99.99% or more C and C++ with almost nothing in assembly outside the hardware abstraction layer and maybe some boot code. After all, when you're targeting nearly half a dozen processor architectures, you don't want to have to hand code assembly for each of them. You want to write it once in C and be done with it. To make this work, I was going to have to rip out the assembly language code and replace it all with freshly written C code that could then be compiled to the native code for each platform. By happy coincidence, a month or two prior, I had met with the MS Arcade team to review their implementation of the old Atari arcade game known as Tempest, which I was the world champion on. That gave me a bit of an in with those guys, so I called them up, and as soon as they could, they sent me some demo code written in C that did some sound work. Between following along with what the assembly did originally and looking at how the C sample worked, I was able to build a new sound engine in C++ that worked across all of our processors. Pretty soon I had the game up and running well enough to start testing it, and to be honest, it was kind of cool to get paid to play pinball at work. Soon enough, however, it was done and time to move on to other projects. I didn't think of pinball much until maybe 10 years later when I was volunteering at my son's school to help the little kids with their computer lab. I came across a kid playing pinball instead of working on his actual assignment. In talking to him, he asked me if I'd ever played it. I responded, not only had I played it, I worked on it at Microsoft. Up until that point, none of the kids were impressed by anything I'd worked on it. Because, I mean, let's face it, when you're in kindergarten, Task Manager is probably what your dad uses to fix the computer when you're crying like a baby because your Bob the Builder CD is locked up. Kids don't use Task Manager until usually 7 or 8 years old, so usually little kids weren't familiar with much of anything I'd worked on. But pinball was different. They all knew and loved pinball. It seemed that for a lot of kids, pinball was the game they played because it was the only game available. That doesn't mean it wasn't a great game, it just means it was truly ubiquitous because it was built into Windows itself. You could plunk down at pretty much any Windows PC and you could find it right where it should be. But not today. Now it's gone. But here's a little secret though. If you can get a hold of a copy, it still works fine. I'll show you how to install it. Before you decide to though, you should understand the reasons why it was removed from Windows in the first place. To find out what those were, I went straight to the source, Raymond Chen, a Microsoft developer who's worked on every version of Windows since the mid-90s. It turns out that just as I had been tasked with porting the game from Windows 95 x86 to Windows NT 32-bit, someone, years later, would be tasked with porting it from Windows 32-bit to Windows 64-bit, and that someone was Raymond. Whereas I had the luxury of a few weeks to work on just pinball, it was just a tiny part of Raymond's task, which was to update the entire shell for 64-bit. But pinball was being obstinate. When built for 64 bits, the collision detection just didn't work correctly. The ball would pass right through obstacles rather than bouncing off. So clearly the original code included some trickery of or dependency on being compiled 32 bits, but what? Raymond pulled in another set of eyes to debug it with him, but after some amount of time, they were no closer. When it became clear that pinball was going to become a time sink well beyond anything they had really allocated time for, they realized that the only option at that point was to pull it. And so, pull it they did. And pinball never made the transition from 32 to 64 bits. But if there's never been a 64-bit version of pinball, how can you run it on 64-bit Windows? Well, that's all thanks to WoW 64. Windows runs truly natively 64 bits, and 32-bit applications run on a special Windows on Windows layer that provides 32-bit compatibility. It's much like how you used to run 16-bit Windows 3.1 apps on 32-bit Windows, just taken to the...
Oops.
Hello, Brains. Have you ever felt like you're really...
Task Manager until usually 7 or 8 years old, so usually little kids weren't familiar with much of anything I'd worked on. But pinball was different. They all knew and loved pinball. It seemed that for a lot of kids, pinball was the game they played because it was the only game available. That doesn't mean it wasn't a great game, it just means it was truly ubiquitous because it was built into Windows itself. You could plunk down at pretty much any Windows PC and you could find it right where it should be. But not today. Now it's gone. But here's a little secret though. If you can get a hold of a copy, it still works fine. I'll show you how to install it. Before you decide to though, you should understand the reasons why it was removed from Windows in the first place. To find out what those were, I went straight to the source, Raymond Chen, a Microsoft developer who's worked on every version of Windows since the mid-90s. It turns out that just as I had been tasked with porting the game from Windows 95 x86 to Windows NT 32-bit, someone, years later, would be tasked with porting it from Windows 32-bit to Windows 64-bit, and that someone was Raymond. Whereas I had the luxury of a few weeks to work on just pinball, it was just a tiny part of Raymond's task, which was to update the entire shell for 64-bit. But pinball was being obstinate. When built for 64 bits, the collision detection just didn't work correctly. The ball would pass right through obstacles rather than bouncing off. So clearly the original code included some trickery of or dependency on being compiled 32 bits, but what? Raymond pulled in another set of eyes to debug it with him, but after some amount of time, they were no closer. When it became clear that pinball was going to become a time sink well beyond anything they had really allocated time for, they realized that the only option at that point was to pull it. And so, pull it they did. And pinball never made the transition from 32 to 64 bits. But if there's never been a 64-bit version of pinball, how can you run it on 64-bit Windows? Well, that's all thanks to WoW 64. Windows runs truly natively 64 bits, and 32-bit applications run on a special Windows on Windows layer that provides 32-bit compatibility. It's much like how you used to run 16-bit Windows 3.1 apps on 32-bit Windows, just taken to the next logical step. As far as I know, when you install a fresh new copy of 64-bit Windows, you get all 64-bit binaries. There's nothing 32-bit about it, and so the WoW 64 system never has to start. That means it doesn't take up time during boot, and it doesn't consume any resources. As soon as 32-bit applications are run, however, the WoW 64 subsystem has to load, which takes time and resources. One could argue that pinball isn't launched at startup, so who really cares? Still, it would look weird and lame to ship that one 32-bit binary, and it would be equally weird and lame to not ship it at all on 64-bit Windows. And what if you ship the 32-bit version on the 64-bit version of Windows, but then the WoW 64 layer was turned off by the user for some reason? There's just a myriad of ways in which you don't want to be shipping only one 32-bit component in a 64-bit OS. The only real solution then would be to invest the time to fix it properly. But is it worth it? Well, even I've got to say probably not, and here's why. First, the game is ancient, and while for many people it's a nostalgic thing, I don't know that younger Windows users are really clamoring for it. More important, though, it's the fact that it's highly visually dated. When you see it next to Windows 11, it's pretty jarring. You can't ship a piece of software, ironically, so you'd have to fix it, which means you'd have to invest not only in a lot of debugging and coding, but also a visual restyle and reskin. It should also be resizable and scalable, which the original never was. The other argument against porting it is that it's not necessary, as the old game still runs today if you need it. I've got to caution you, however, that I'm not an attorney. It seems intuitive to me that if you own a legally licensed copy of XP and a legally licensed copy of Windows 10, you should be able to run a component from XP on 10, but maybe the license specifically says that they're not separable for some reason. I don't know. I can't give you any legal advice because I'm not qualified to, so you have to get your own. If you do have the appropriate license for it, the binary can be found online as well, which saves you digging out your old XP CD. But be forewarned, the binaries I've seen are not signed in any way by anyone. They could be complete Trojan horses, so how can you trust them? Frankly, unless you did a binary compare or MD5 hash to verify they're the same as the CD, you can't. You're rolling the dice. I'll only experiment in an isolated VM for that reason, and if you feel compelled to follow, suggest you do it the same way. To get started, I'm going to bring up Windows 11, which I dare say is awfully pretty. It could just be because blue is my favorite color, but somehow it just feels right. To get underway, we merely have to click on the Start menu. We'll enter 3D Pinball for Windows Space Cadet. If I have a useful direct link for the download, I'll place it in the video description, so check below before hunting too far and wide on your own. Now remember, I take no responsibility for what you find on the internet installed on your machine. Experiment at your own risk, as always. The binary in this case appears to be a WinRAR self-extracting archive. I don't know where this came from, but even though I've been a licensed WinRAR user for about 25 years, it sure wasn't me, and it probably wasn't anybody from Microsoft. The archive self-extractor will automatically install to your x86 program files folder in the Microsoft Games folder, where it will create a new folder called Pinball and place all the sound, graphics, and program files. That's one thing the app has going for it. No fancy setup is required. Just dump its files in a folder and go. Finally, a shortcut will be created on your desktop. When we launch the game from that desktop icon, the splash screen is initially full screen, but the actual game itself is tiny on a large monitor. It does seem to run perfectly, however. Some would say that the fact that this old app still runs without hiccup more than 25 years later is a testament to the quality of that conversion port so many years ago. Others would say it's the amazing backwards compatibility of Windows itself that makes it even possible. That's for historians to judge, not me. For now, all that matters is that Pinball still works and it plays on Windows 10. And now, maximum difficulty. Ooh, that is challenging. In the code to Pinball, deep in the heart of its logic, is a piece of code that I don't think anyone fully understands. Well, Raymond probably does, but I sure didn't. It's called a state machine, and it's pretty much completely undocumented. Each time your code runs through it, the state of the machine changes, and that state is tracked in a state of variables scattered around the program. It's really hard to figure out what's going on, but it works. Earlier, I mentioned a super user mode. That's not something that we normally do in the systems world, so Pinball contains about the only one I can think of in all of Windows. It doesn't make you a real super user, just within Pinball's actual game framework. To activate it, you enter the words hidden test with a space in between before launching the first ball. It might not be readily obvious, but now I can control the ball physics with my mouse and drag the ball around as well. There's a whole set of commands that do extra things like give you extra balls, promote you through the game ranks, add high scores, and so on. I'll put a list of those that work in the description. Now, the last thing I want to do in Windows 11 for today is show you how to move the Start menu back to the bottom left corner. I'd argue that the screen corner provides a spot where you can anchor your mouse by physical gesture. Just rank it down to the bottom left. Rank it? Yeah, you know, like in chess. But it's really more that I'm just used to it that way. To change it, you can right-click on the taskbar and click Taskbar Settings. Once the taskbar settings come up, you'll want to select Taskbar Behaviors. Following that, you can select Taskbar Alignment and then choose Left, which will move the Start menu back down into the bottom left corner. Here's a random story about the Start menu. When I was working on it for NT4, obviously, one of the first things we had to do was to remove all the Windows 95 branding. The Start menu had a vertical Windows 95 banner running up its side. Since Windows 95 can only draw text horizontally and not vertically, it had to be a graphic for them. Windows NT, however, supports rotation of the device context, so I simply rotated my world 90 degrees and drew the Start menu and its text entirely with regular drawing APIs and no canned bitmaps. So there you go. The new Windows 11 Start menu works fine, even though I've never used it before. As a test, I did what muscle memory would have me do, and that is to launch Word. I'd press the Windows key and then type the first few letters of the program name, and up pops Word. That's about all I care about out of the box, because anything else I can probably adapt to. I'm very much trying to grow this channel, so if you found today's episode interesting or entertaining, do consider subscribing to my channel. If you know someone who used to enjoy pinball back in the day, please click the share button to send them a link. I'm not selling anything, I don't have any Patreons, I'm just in this for the subs and likes, so please consider leaving me one of each before you go. Oh wait, I am selling something, but I don't keep the money. Mugs for charity. Grab yourself a collective Dave's Garage mug from the channel store or the link in the video description. All net channel profits for calendar year 2021 are being donated to the UW Autism Center. If you're new to my channel, the two primary sets of videos you likely want to check out are the Windows War Story series and the Software Drag Racing series. The War Story series covers my time working on things like Task Manager and zip folders, as well as stories like how I secretly built Microsoft Bob into Windows XP. The Language Racing series compares the language speeds of different compilers, pitting Rust and C and Python against Perl and so on. Check it out for the sometimes surprising results. Thanks for joining me out here in the shop today. In the meantime and in between time, I hope to see you next time, right here in Dave's Garage. By happy coincidence, a month or two prior, I had met with the MS Arcade team to review their implementation of an old arcade game. By happy coincidence, a month or two prior, I had met with the MS Arcade team to review their implementation of the old Atari game. Add and subtract. That gave me a bit of an in with those guys, so I called them up and soon they sent me some demo code doing a sound engine in C. So I it's much like how you used to run 16-bit Windows 3.1 apps on 32-bit Windows. Wow, you're gonna rush through that a little bit there, matey. Can't even say your name. Still, it would look a little weird and lame to ship one 32-bit binary, and it would be equally weird to lay. They could be complete Trojan horses. How do you know? Frankly, unless you did a binary 5 from. I'll only experiment with them in an isolated VM for that reason. If you follow compelled to follow, man. And now, maximum difficulty. All net channel profits for the calendar year 2021 are being donated to the UW Autism Center. UW? What is this, an episode of Grey's Anatomy where you're like an actor, you don't even know the local lingo? I don't think so.
Hello, brains. Have you ever felt like you're really bad at relaxing? Yeah, that's an ADHD thing. Sometimes what my brain needs is a break from self-reg. Sometimes it just needs a break from a specific stressor, like English. Babbel is great for that. Because it's engaging and stimulating, it's a way for me to get a mental break from something that I really care about but I can't stop spinning on, and get my brain spinning on something else for a minute so that I can come back fresh. What's great about Babbel is it's really interactive, but it's also designed by actual language teachers, so it's not just fun, I really feel like I'm learning this language.
Ik versta het niet.
Ik versta het niet. I appreciate that all of these right now are about me saying, I don't understand. What did you say? I don't understand it. Ik versta het niet. Babbel is teaching me the grammar and pronunciation of Dutch, which is very different from what I'm used to. Oh wait, no.
Het restaurant.
Het restaurant. Oh my gosh, that's really hard to say. Okay. I'm starting to feel more confident with it, and even having a bit of fun.
De pannenkoek.
De pannenkoek. Guess what that means? Pancakes! I'm still just a beginner, but because Babbel focuses on real-world conversations, I already feel comfortable speaking it when the opportunity comes up. At the keynote I gave recently for an organization in the Netherlands, I was even able to be playful with it. I'm excited to keep going with it and see how much more I can learn. If you'd like to learn a new language, I highly recommend Babbel. Just click the link in the description below or scan this QR code for 60% off your subscription. Other side. And let me know in the comments below what kind of language you want to learn and why. A lot of people in this community, including me, find that they have a really hard time relaxing. Doing relaxing activities specifically, like going to the beach and just hanging out in a hammock and relaxing, or doing a puzzle, or just anything that's like deliberate relaxation activities are very difficult for people in this community as a general rule. And there's a couple reasons for that. One, we get bored really easily. You know, laying in a hammock and chilling and watching the sunset or whatever, that gets boring so fast, and our brains do not like to be bored. It can actually be more painful than relaxing, which is a lot of the time why I think I will start a project if left to my own devices. But I realized recently that there's another reason why we have a hard time relaxing. Focusing on a relaxing activity still requires self-regulation. And that is usually what we need a break from. Because we have a condition that makes regulating our attention, our emotions, our behavior, our sleep really difficult, a lot of the time what relaxation looks like, I have learned, is taking a break from self-reg. We have to put in so much extra effort to get ourselves to focus on the thing that we need to do, and to do the thing and say the thing right and mask our ADHD in certain situations, and all of these things engage in so much self-regulation, like active manual self-regulation on a regular basis, that taking a break from that is often what we need most. I have long talked about how it's really important to let our brains and bodies wander down a wiki hole, or like go on a walk and just explore, get some green time in, just have that kind of effortless fascination where your brain's just kind of bouncing around and stuff. The problem is that takes energy. And as I recently learned, if you haven't seen that video, check it out. When really hyper-focusing for an extended period of time, like I had energy for absolutely nothing else. I definitely didn't have the energy to go for a walk, but I still needed a break. And so I didn't know what to do until one day my brain was like, I can't self-regulate like this. I need a break from self-regulation. And I was like, oh, that's what relaxing looks like for us. Honestly, just in general, like taking a break from relaxing. I learned this because there was one day where I just really needed a break, and instead of taking a break or doing anything that anybody else would think was relaxing, I started a new project. I didn't understand it either, because I'm like, if I had decided to do this project today, if I decided to focus on this project, then that would have been work. But because I didn't decide to, my brain decided to, I just let it do what it wanted, and it wanted to do a project that day. And so that's something that I've learned. Like, relaxing for us might look different than it does for most people, because our energy is put into something different than for most people. We put so much more energy than most people do into regulating our behavior, our emotions, our attention, everything about ourselves. We put so much energy into regulating that all the time that we often just need a break from that. And so I see a lot of times people saying like, oh yeah, like it's the dopamine, right? Like I'm scrolling through Twitter for the dopamine. I'm doing this for the dopamine. I'm chasing the dopamine. I think it's sometimes that we just need to let our brains off leash a little bit. We need a break from trying to focus on the thing we're supposed to be focusing on, and just let our brains do what it wants. Are there times that we are, chasing cheap sources of dopamine because we're bored? Sure. But sometimes we're just exhausted. And so I think it's good to reframe that a little bit and know that if we are doing something that doesn't seem productive, it's because we're letting our brains off leash. We don't have to be doing a relaxing activity in order to relax. We just need to loosen the reins a little bit sometimes. Yeah, it's great to, have the house to yourself and do whatever you want and scream at the top of your lungs and like bounce, jump on the bed. I don't know. Be able to literally do whatever you want because there's nobody else around. But even if there's other people around, I think it's important to like not be like, I'm just not self-regulating. Everybody can just deal. I did have to do that at one point in writing the book, and I was very careful to like let people know, hey, I'm gonna be a lot right now. I need a break from self-reg. I need to not self-regulate right now. I might be a lot. I might be loud. I might be silly. I don't know. I'm gonna be a lot. I'm gonna continue to be a lot. But you don't have to be here for it. Like, and if I'm bothering you, let me know. If you need to leave and go do your own thing, like that's totally fine. I just can't. Like, I was at that point where I was completely burnt out. But what I realized, coming back to work and just in my normal day-to-day life, applying this new understanding, there's a lot of ways that we can take a break from self-reg. There's a lot of ways we can do that, even partially. So I've been a little bit more mindful of like, hey, I'm starting to get tired. I'm going to take a break from self-reg in this one aspect. I'm in a meeting with somebody who it's okay if I sit weird on my chair, so I'm just not going to care about that. Like, I'm going to sit on my chair however I want to sit, and I'm not going to monitor that behavior. I'm not going to like try and sit in a professional way. I'm going to take that little bit of my brain off leash. I'm going to unmask that part of my ADHD. Taking a break from self-reg does not mean deliberately doing something relaxing. It means letting your brain do what it wants to do, even if that's the exact same thing it would have been doing otherwise. I think that's the key. Like, that's why it's so confusing. That's why I thought I was so bad at relaxing for so long, is like, yeah, I got bored and I immediately started doing something else that was definitely not a relaxing activity. Well, because when my brain's off leash, it doesn't want to do a relaxing activity because it's boring. The point is like not forcing it to do something that it is not in the mood to do. That's what taking a break from self-reg looks like. So if I want to sit, right now I'm like, I want to sit cross-legged. Cool, that's what I'm doing. We can at least in little ways start to give ourselves a break from the self-regulation that we have to do a day in and day out. And here's the thing. If we don't give ourselves that break, I feel like we're going to take it anyway. If I don't let my brain off leash now and then, if I don't recharge that, that ability to self-regulate, at some point, my brain starts to rebel, or I can't keep it anymore and I'm going to be reactive to something or whatever. It's really important for us to take that time to recharge, because if we don't, like, our brains are going to take it anyway. It is not realistic for us to be able to perfectly manage our attention and behavior and emotions and everything 24/7. It's just not. We need a break. Like, mindfully give yourself a break and be like, I'm not going to ask my brain to do something it doesn't want to do right now. I'm going to let it do what it wants, because I know that I'm going to need to be able to focus later. I know that I'm going to need to be on tomorrow. And so, like, today I'm going to give myself a break. That's, I think, what meds do too, is like it makes it easier to self-regulate. Like, that's what my meds do for me. And so on days when I don't have my meds, when I can't take my meds, when I'm out of meds, whatever, I let my brain off leash a little bit more, because it is more effort for me to self-regulate on those days. But I just wanted to put it out there. Like, I think it would be really cool to have that vocabulary in our community. Like, do you want to do a fun, relaxing activity, or do you need a break from self-reg? Because I think those are two different things. And I think by trying to relax correctly, we are unintentionally not giving ourselves the break that we need, at least speaking for myself. And I do see it a lot in the community too. So I hope this is helpful. Thank you to my brain advocates and all my Patreon brains for helping me support this channel so that I can talk about what I want to talk about and do videos that I think are going to be helpful for the community. I think this is going to be something that's really important for our community to like think about and be aware of. I'm curious what you do, like, that you actually find relaxing. Like, if you give yourself a break from self-regulating, what does your brain naturally want to do? Because I think it'll be
Now the
different from
graphics
person to
are
person in the
fine.
community. But for me, it often is starting a project, doing something creative, or I don't know,
They send it
thinking
there and they
deep
sort
philosophical thoughts. That's what my brain wants to do a lot of the time. So it seems like work, but if it's not scheduled, if it's not something that I'm trying to focus on, it doesn't feel like work. It feels like a break. So I think maybe that's the takeaway, is like, take a break from self-reg now and then. Like, see if that's relaxing, and notice how that feels compared to trying to do something relaxing, and like which actually feels recharging, what actually feels better to you. Like, subscribe, click all the things, and I will see you next video. Bye, brains. Thank you again to Babbel for sponsoring this video. Click the link in the description or scan the QR to get 60% off your subscription.
All right, so this is a suggestion via a donation. The name of the video is Trevor Noah standing up against cancel culture and defending comedy. All right, let's check it out.
Racial observations have very much formed, at least in the early stages, the backbone of your stand-up comedy career. Do you now regret some of the jokes you made? Let me give you an example. You said, my mother, black South African, was saying, get me a white guy, get me a white guy. Well, my father was white Swiss. Of course, he liked chocolate.
That sounds really funny. Why would I regret that?
Why would...
Is it funny? Bro, that is hilarious. Listen, Trevor Noah is an interesting guy, right? I mean, I've encountered a couple of his like sets, and they were solid, right? But that one right there, that very specific joke, yeah, it even sounds funny with her saying it. It's hilarious. Lighten up a little bit.
Do you regret that? Because some people say that's not really very funny.
Who are these some people?
Everyone can say something is not really funny. It's just the way some people don't
But
like
is it
Indian
more than that?
food.
Okay, let me give you an example. We have a very well-established black comedian in Britain called Lenny Henry, and he has said that he regrets doing that kind of joke where he said he would wipe his sweating brow and say, huh, I'm leaking chocolate.
But that's different.
Well, it's not. It's usually
That's not the same.
Well, the Swiss love chocolates.
Right.
Is not a term.
Listen, I'm sorry. Both of them were kind of funny, bro. That may make me a bad person. I don't know, potentially.
But you're referring to your mother's skin color as chocolate. What he said.
Because my mom is.
Listen, guys, listen, hold on, bro. My literal, when my son was 4 years old, okay, he walked up to me, he licked me, and said, "Ew, you don't taste like chocolate." Listen, I laughed my ass off then. All right, I don't know. I find it funny. I'm sorry. Maybe I'm just. I don't know, guys. I don't. Maybe I don't get it, guys. Maybe I'm broken or something. That was hilarious to me.
Let me finish.
But no, I don't taste like chocolate, bro.
Beautiful chocolate.
Yeah.
That's what she's saying. And this is if you in the book I talk about this as well.
Welcome
I go.
back.
I saw people and race as chocolate.
Bro, I got more jokes, guys. More jokes. All right, bro. My wife's grandmother, right, asked her literally, "Is he brown all over?" Guys, she's like 90. She was like 90 years old, bro. All right. Just understand that for a second, okay? Keep in mind, you know, my wife's grandmother, she probably, and I mean never, has been in the presence, like within like a household of someone who looks like me. That's a fact, bro. Right? 90-year-old woman from Granada, Spain. All right. Trust me. She had questions. I wasn't offended because obviously it's just pure like inquisitive nature of people who look different. That's really what that is, guys.
I wouldn't use that.
When
I wouldn't use that.
No, no.
I'm that color,
But
and
when
I wouldn't
grew up-
say that.
listen,
but-
when I grew up, I believed that all people were chocolates. My mom was dark chocolates.
Right.
My dad was white chocolates.
Uh-huh.
I was milk chocolates.
Okay.
So I see
So
all
you see that as funny, but do you not
as
realise that
chocolates.
some people might not like that? And Lenny Henry went
Man
on
said,
to
"I
say
see all people
that
as
joke about
chocolates."
how he was leaking
They're just
chocolate
trying to make him
was
feel
actually
bad
a
about
better
who he
way
is,
of
man.
trying to put the message over, putting your jokes over without having to pick on people because of their colour or because of their race.
Stop picking on people, bro.
His view is different from yours.
Because he's Lenny Henry and I'm Trevor Noah.
Right.
But he's black.
Yes, but he was talking about leaking chocolate, implied.
She just said, "Oh, but you guys are both black." Listen, generally people who are deeply melanated are definitely not like a monolith. There are all types of dark-skinned people from all around the world, guys. People in Nepal, guys, they're probably darker than Trevor Noah, guys. And then you have people in India who are darker. What exactly are we talking about here, right? I mean, dark skin is not like specifically unique to Africa, guys. It's just not. Maybe the phenotype is potentially, but overall dark skin is just not, right? So when you try to paint every single deeply melanated person into a literal box, in which she, for some reason, is trying to put everyone in a box, bro. My lived experiences are absolutely different than Trevor Noah's, right? And it also absolutely different than any other person that looks like me, right? She seems to be playing the victim a little bit, guys. I'm not really a fan consistently playing victim, bro. But either way,
Trevor Noah.
Yeah,
He
but
was
he's
talking-
also he's black.
Yes, but he was talking about leaking chocolate, implying that his skin color was not something that belonged to him. That is a different
He's not.
joke.
He's
that is
just
a
trying
different
to say
idea.
that his skin color is chocolate.
No.
You're splitting hairs here.
No, but that is exactly what we should be doing. Because what you're doing is
Okay.
creating.
I'm not sure I
You're
would.
creating
I'm not
racial
sure
jokes.
I would say.
No,
Flip
you're
it on her.
creating monoliths. You're creating monoliths of jokes, and that's not fair to do. Every single joke has a context. Every single joke comes from a place. The most important thing with comedy is context.
Right.
Without context, no conversation is complete. Without context, no communication can
But somebody
truly be
could
appreciated.
take that out of context.
Yeah, there,
and
you've said
so
it.
I'm putting it
It's
to
their
you then.
problem.
Are you not, given what Lenny Henry said, are you not guilty perhaps with some of your routines or a joke like that, reinforcing prejudices and promoting stereotypes in the minds of people who may be inclined to think like that, and then they'll think, oh, Trevor Noah says
That's
his
their
mother's
ignorance.
chocolate, I'm going to go around saying that to my black friends, and they might take offense. You could be reinforcing prejudice.
bro.
You could be doing anything if you are not doing the opposite. How your action is implied.
Oh, he's good, guys. He's
does not
good.
define what you were doing.
Okay, let's look at another aspect of race.
No. He flipped it on you. You have to answer.
Just
Make a
few years
statement.
ago to the United States. Your routine as a comedian often mimics Africans and also African Americans. And about African Americans, you have said this: you are not African, but we play along. It's a very loose term, African American, because half the time you use it for people who aren't even African.
Bruh, listen. Firstly, let's go ahead and point this out here. If you are from America and born in America, I'm sorry. You are American. All right? That's just what you are. I don't like the hyphens. Because if you want to start giving people hyphens, then everyone needs hyphens, bro. All right, so that's just what it is. You are absolutely American. My ties to Africa are zero. I don't have any ties to Africa directly, guys. Not like that at least, right? I mean, obviously, if you go back into my bloodline, I cut out to be 38% West African, coming from specifically Togo and Benin, which is obvious because that's where the people of basically Ghana were selling Africans. That's the reason, right? So yeah, guys, my direct tie to Africa is absolutely horrific, guys, right? So, but yeah, anyway, but long story short, I don't really have any. Yeah, I'm American, all right. And if you're watching this and you look like me, and you're born in America, you're just plain all American, all right. I don't like the hyphens. Let's get it.
Very loose term, African American, because half the time you use it for people who aren't even African. As long as you're black, they say African American.
I didn't deliver it like that. You're not doing my jokes justice.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, that was trash.
I'm not a comedian.
No. But
The way you
see,
did it.
That's,
But
no,
I'm
no,
just
no.
asking, are they not African American?
Here's what you're missing.
Is she picking apart every single line of his jokes right now, guys?
What you're doing right now is the equivalent of me saying, now it's raining more than ever. I'll be here with you forever. You can always be my friend, standing under my umbrella. Ella, 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 Ella,
Bro, he's so good. He's so good.
I'm
Absolutely.
not doing everything that was within the context of
Right.
the song Umbrella by Rihanna.
Right.
When you were doing comedy,
I remember that the entire line that he delivered. Right, he was talking about how he got onto the plane and like the first thing, then he got off of the plane and somebody was like, "Oh, what's up, my N-word?" Right, and then he obviously then reciprocates it because he's like he's so happy he's now at least that. Because guys, if you remember that movie with Don Cheadle where he played basically was it Rwanda, and like one of the UN soldiers were like, "You're not even the N-word, basically, right? You're an African, right?" That's kind of the thing, guys, right?
I spoke it. My eyes,
Most likely
my
that he
voice,
was
my
playing
connection
on-
with an audience is completely different. People can see when you are being playful. People can see when you are saying
So you're
something
being playful about
that you don't believe. That is what
So you-
satire is,
okay,
though.
fine.
You're poking holes.
So you're you're-
So in
so
that.
you don't believe what
so,
you say.
No,
then?
no,
Let
no,
him
no.
speak.
What you're leaving out in that whole joke is what I was talking about was how in America, Anglo-Saxons had successfully removed Americanisms from minorities. So every single group in America had an identity attached to the Americanness except white Americans. So it's African American, Asian American, Hispanic American, Latin American, Native
Well, you
American.
don't know, you have
and
Irish
yet-
Americans
No,
there,
no,
Russian,
no, 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 no,
Polish
no,
No.
but that box, and this is a joke for Americans, understand that. So as an American, they understand this.
All right,
On the boxes, there is no Irish American, there is only white.
But not looking
But there
at-
is African American, and there is Asian American.
But you know,
and there, do you get what I'm
all
saying?
right,
So,
I do
so
get what
that's
you're
the whole
saying,
point
but the
of
point
joke.
I'm trying to make is that there was
Bro, I just put other and move on.
a shift amongst the
Right.
Black American community to start calling themselves African American. They didn't want a definition by default.
Bro, that was Jesse Jackson. Don't say it's a shift between, like, specifically all African Americans. That was specifically for the most part, a race peddler. That's what that is. That's where that came from. All right, so let's, have some intellectual honesty.
I.e., you were not white, so therefore you were black. They wanted to have a hyphenated identity that linked them with the continent of their ancestors. And therefore, when you say, oh, they're not really African, they're playing along, you cannot disconnect what you say from this debate that's really, captured the imagination of the African American, Black and
She's literally talking about my subgroup, right? And I'm saying the exact opposite of everything she's saying.
American community. And also, point
I don't like the
making
separating
is when
thing,
you say
guys. It's
that,
weird.
It now feeds into a debate that's current in the United States. For example, Kwame Kwame, the Black Britain theatre director in the United States, says he has conversations with African Americans now who are saying, we want to go back to being called Black American because we don't have anything in common with this recently arrived African Americans, be they Somalis, Niger.
Right, I'll absolutely take Black American for the most part. If you were to ask me, like for example, if ever I'm asked, like outside of the country, I'm outside of the country a lot, right? So, where are you from? Well, I'm just an American, obviously. But then if they get deeper, I'm obviously Black American. I'm American. That's it. I don't really like I have no ties to Africa. Even going on to the African continent, we have not many similarities, guys.
In South Africans, such as you, they have different language and so on.
Appearance
So
is one thing,
What
but-
you say feeds into that debate, and it sounds like you're saying there is a difference between African Americans and Black Americans.
There definitely is a difference. But these are differences that can be celebrated or used to separate people. Noting differences does not implicitly make it a bad thing.
Right.
When you are noticing differences, you can note them for good reasons. It's the same reason we notice different colors or we notice different flowers. That can be a good thing. If you're using it to celebrate, you can use that same thing the same way apartheid did to separate people. When you talk about African Americans, the one conversation that I was talking about was I was traveling in America and I was going to a lot of universities, and I came to realize in many universities in America, the conversation you're having right now, they had an African American student body. And very quickly they noticed a shift because they could not lump black people into a monolith. They could not lump, because there were people from the Caribbean who said, we are not African American.
Yep.
There were people from Africa who were like, these are not our views, we are Africans in America.
Right. So
There
that's
is a difference.
interesting, yeah.
And so what people themselves did was they said, you can't just lump us into this group.
Fine. And does that difference mean that it doesn't
Fine.
answer-
Yes, let's move on.
Because I'm thinking in 20
No, there is no cohesiveness within Black Americans. There really isn't. There really isn't.
They really thought they were
There's
going to
none.
trap him.
I don't even. She for some reason thinks that every single person that is considered black within the borders of the United States of America is the same exact person. I think that she thinks that there's some type of unity. There's like no unity. I don't know. Right? It's just not. It's not there like that. And specifically, when people are coming from, like he's saying, if they're coming from different countries with different cultures, not really, bro. There just isn't. There's none of that.
Ngozi Adichie, the celebrated Nigerian author.
It's sad,
Said that
but-
when she visited the US, she felt that her African-American classmate was annoyed with her because she didn't share their anger. And she said that she was not burdened herself by America's terrible racial history. That difference, does it result in the African Americans who've arrived recently?
Why aren't you offended for
acting
them?
differently, or having a different psyche from the Black Americans who were the descendants of slaves and of
Okay, that is the thing, absolutely, right? But it's not something that matters like that. It matters. It matters a little bit, I will say. But I do think that when Africans from Africa come directly to the Americas, they do a lot better than Black Americans that have been here, that have been that were descendants of slaves. Absolutely, they do, because they had nothing. They don't have a similar past, right? But keep in mind, like there are a lot of Black Americans who are not in that very specific situation. Yes, the past happened. It did, right? But that's not a part of the daily thought process, right? If that makes any sense. Like me, I listen, the only thing that has held me back in life is me not wanting to get up, if that makes any sense, right? And what I mean by that is, like, there's nothing really, I can't think of any blocks that have blocked me from like success in kind of like anything that I've really done, other than me just not doing it, right? Like, so I would say the hardest thing about starting something is starting it, just the starting aspect of it. Like getting over the concept of allowing this like weird victim mentality to just like break you and conquer you, right? And I can definitely say that unfortunately there's a lot of, like, you know, Black Americans who are just caught in this like web, and it's sad. And this is why when Africans do come, mainly and literally, when Africans come to America, they dominate, all right? And they dominate in like every field that they enter into, because they have had a different lived experience, and they are not just inundated with this like this overbearing victim mentality.
lived for many, many years, obviously, in the US?
Well, I will say this. I will be careful to not comment on the experience of every single person, because I'm only myself and I can only experience the people that are
Thank
around
you
me.
for saying
What I
that.
do know is this. In terms of our racial histories, South Africa and America are very similar.
Well, specifically, I'm not referring to really specifically South Africa, because most of the times if I'm to encounter an African within the borders of the United States, they're probably going to be from West Africa. Mainly like Nigeria is normally where we'll see a lot of like Africans.
When I talk to a Black American person, there are many stories that we share as human beings. There are many oppressions that we have experienced through our selective, oppressors. I think those are the things that many people can relate to across the board.
So there's more to unite, even though you say there
there is
are
definitely more to
differences.
unite, especially when you are being oppressed as a group, because you must remember, when you are in the US as a Black African man, I can tell you now that if you have an encounter with the police,
temperature is really dumping here now.
They are not going to split. I can tell you now that if you have an encounter with the police, they are not going to split the hairs.
They're not going to
that
say,
you're
excuse me,
talking
Trevor,
about.
no, are you from South Africa
Yes,
or
that
are you
doesn't,
from
that,
Detroit?
that doesn't happen.
No,
that doesn't.
Racial.
Guys, I'm not really a fan of the interviewer, guys. I don't know. Maybe she's good in like something else, guys, but the fact that she just kept trying to go back to just like victimness, guys, it stresses me out.
She must stick to Andrew Tate.
But yeah, he is definitely, you know, he's a really good person to interview because I don't think that he's easily swayed, right? I mean, he's extremely sharp mentally, and that I think absolutely helps his cause, let's say, right? But all right, guys, listen, you guys all have an absolutely amazing day and enjoy your day thoroughly. Definitely let me know in the comments also exactly what do you guys think.
Why, hello, my fellow apes. I hope you are well. Welcome to the second in my series of responses to Dr. Jordan Peterson's Roundtable on Exodus. Having a rating on IMDb of 5.8 out of 10, Dr. Jordan B. Peterson is joined by formidable theological and literary scholars to
Can't believe people are doing this again. We are in the midst of yet another satanic panic. As has happened every decade since at least before my parents were born, a wave of popular media utilizing subversive, sometimes devilish imagery has arisen, and more conservative religious folks are extremely concerned.
What we saw last night was a full-scale embrace of Satanism on a major American network show. That's an amazing thing. And it's an amazing thing because what it really speaks to, in a much deeper way, is what Western culture now has to say about evil and the nature of good. Because it is one thing to say that you don't like the strictures of religion. It is another thing to full-on embrace Satanism.
When we're discussing Satan clubs in our public schools, we are failing our children. We are failing our children. These are frightening images. It's a frightening ideology. It's the responsibility of the adults in the room to stand up and speak up for the parents. We have to do better.
I get it. We don't want Satan being promoted to our children.
We have to teach our kids as Christians that, hey, look, this is not just a cartoon character. This is not a game. This is not something that we mess with. This is not something that we laugh about. Satan exists. Evil exists. Demons exist. The spiritual realm exists. And Ephesians 6 tells us that that is who our battle is against, the powers of darkness that we cannot see. And so teaching our kids, too, that there is a spiritual battle going on for your heart and soul right now.
Honestly, I get it. I can deeply empathize with those who think this is a problem, even a terrifying one. I was raised in a home that strongly believed in spiritual warfare. I didn't just believe that satanic imagery in media indicated Satan's influence in our culture. I believe that basically anything that didn't praise or honor Christ was ultimately a result of demonic influence. Secular education didn't always agree with my view of the Bible, so public schools bred demonic activity. Intoxication didn't honor God, so any place that served alcohol also served vulnerable souls up to Satan. But yeah, if I saw any of this back then, I would have been especially convinced that Satan was controlling the minds of influential people in our culture in an attempt to destroy God's kingdom on earth. But they're just making a statement, it's art, they don't really believe in Satan, people would tell me. I'd respond, do you really think that an evil entity that wants to destroy you wants you to think he exists? If you don't think he exists, you'll never recognize his influence. Satanic or demonic forces almost always influence people without their knowledge. But Christians who have the discernment of the Holy Spirit, like me, can see when that's happening. When I eventually stopped believing in the supernatural in my adulthood, loved ones immediately told me I was succumbing to satanic influence and made the point that I just articulated. I had thought about this idea a lot by then, so I responded, by that exact same reasoning, couldn't I, or a Muslim rather, say that you are being influenced by Satan? After all, in Islam, the shaitan doesn't want you to think he exists. He almost always influences people without their knowledge. He doesn't want you to practice the true faith of Islam, so he subtly manipulates you to believe that Christianity is true. But you can't recognize that because you're not a faithful Muslim. But that's not fair, they said. I know what's happening in my own head better than you, and I'm not being manipulated by the devil. I would know if I was. Exactly, I agreed. You're right. There's no way we could possibly investigate whether someone is being subtly controlled by evil spiritual forces without their knowledge, so asserting that is pointless. Now, do you still think that you know my mind better than I do? Are you still sure that I'm being influenced by Satan? Thankfully, they said no, and the subject hasn't come up since. Today, I obviously don't think that the latest wave of Satan-themed pop culture is the work of an actual devil. I do, however, think that it reveals what many people, especially those under 40 or so, are experiencing spiritually. Now, I see the spiritual naturalistically as a part of psychology, but I'm hoping to provide helpful insight to anyone watching, religious, spiritual, or not. So, to those willing to take that journey with me, let's explore why Satan is growing in popularity and what that says about the spiritual lives of those so interested in him. Christ and Satan, a dichotomy of values. In Christian theology, Lucifer, like mankind, is God's creation. He traditionally carries out evil, but because God is perfectly good, many theologians maintain, it follows that God did not create Lucifer's evil nature. Rather, Lucifer's nature became corrupt after his creation, taking on characteristics which God lacked. In this way, Satan is simultaneously an inversion of God's nature and dependent on God's nature for his own. What Satan as a character does, or as a symbol represents, depends fully on what God does and represents. Arguably the most enduring conception of Jesus is that of God himself in human form, a divine savior, Christ. Through his words and deeds, he perfectly embodied the things we should all cultivate within ourselves: peace, wisdom, charity, incorruption, justice, mercy, and unconditional love of others. In turn, the most enduring conception of Satan is that of the antithesis of all these things. In his rebellion against Christ, he has represented violence, ignorance, deception, greed, corruption, injustice, cruelty, and hatred of others. Early in the 19th century, a new conception of Satan emerged from Romantic literature, that of an underdog, heroic in his rebellion against authority undeserving of obedience. Taking this interpretation of Satan in John Milton's Paradise Lost, Romantic poet Percy Shelley wrote, "He is a devil very different from the popular personification of evil, and it is a mistake to suppose that he was intended for an idealism of evil. Malignity, implacable hate, cunning, and refinement of device to inflict the utmost anguish on an enemy, these, which are venial in a slave, are not to be forgiven in a tyrant. These, which are redeemed by much that ennobles in one subdued, are marked by all that dishonors his conquest in the victor." The devil owes everything to Milton. Dante and Tasso present us with a very gross idea of him. Milton divested him of a sting, hook, and horns, and clothed him with a sublime grandeur and a graceful but tremendous spirit. Note that Shelley takes Satan's role as God's intended slave as necessary to justify his hatred and rebellion. In his recent commentary on satanic imagery in pop culture, Ben Shapiro identified the romantic view of Satan as driving Satan's increasing popularity today. He did this, though, by explaining a traditional view of Satan's character in Paradise Lost and conflating this with the romantic view of Satan.
Satan in Paradise Lost very famously says, "In my choice to reign is worth ambition, though in hell. Better to reign in hell than serve in heaven." It's the big kind of tagline for Satan in Paradise Lost, is better to reign in hell than serve in heaven. And the whole reason that Satan rebels against God is not because he actually thinks that God is morally wrong. It's because he believes that individual autonomy, that his sense of power is more important than anything. He rebels against God specifically because God demands good things of him. Not because he thinks that God is demanding bad things of him, but because he recognizes that God stands for a higher morality, something good and true. He rebels against it specifically for that reason. But that rebellion, for large parts of the transgressive mind over the course of the last several centuries, that rebellion is heroic in this view. And that has now become the full-fledged view of so many on the left, and they don't even know that this is the case.
So, is a rebellion against all goodness for the sake of mindless self-indulgence all that's behind Satan's popularity? I'll flatly say no. That is an overly simplistic narrative created to serve the biases of traditionalists. What about a rise in the actual romantic view of Satan as a champion of individual sovereignty in the face of tyranny? While I do think the romantic view is very influential today, I don't think it's the whole story. Recent events and individual experiences are creating a new meaning to Satan's character. Inverting Christ, from charity to greed. In August 2017, Pastor Joel Osteen's megachurch, Lakewood, opens its doors to victims of Hurricane Harvey. Only after thousands of people openly criticize it for failing to do so when the people of Houston needed it most. The church has tried to do better since, but it's clear to many that reducing bad PR has motivated this change more than any Christian commitment to charity. Lakewood's stadium-sized auditorium was meant as a stage for a pastor with a net worth of $50 million, and to a lesser extent, as an opulent venue in which attendees could be perceived as a part of its grandeur. In the same year, Hillsong Church pastor Carl Lentz began publicly appearing alongside Justin Bieber, the Kardashians, and several other A-listers, usually wearing designer clothes worth tens of thousands of dollars. He was there to provide spiritual guidance, he claimed. His celebrity massively grew Hillsong's popularity, so they were happy to funnel a small fraction of their tens of millions in annual profits and donations into his lifestyle. Eventually, in 2020, Carl's multiple extramarital affairs and emotional abuse of his congregants was uncovered, and Hillsong fired him. Still, they pushed to mingle with celebrities, open larger churches, and up their profits, all in the name of Christ. These are just two high-profile examples of a trend many Christians and non-Christians alike see in our culture, invoking the words of Jesus in order to garner fame and wealth. Even outside of megachurches, it's clear how common this is. Whether real estate developers, musicians, pastors, business owners, or even Christian evangelists, many Christians purposely broadcast their wealth as somehow a part of their faith rather than prioritize Christ-like charity. As a result, in the eyes of many, Christ has come to represent corruption and greed, from peace and justice to violence. The Catholic Church has seen so many abuse scandals in the last few decades that the image of priests as inherently predatory has permeated our culture. Since 1950, underage sexual abuse victims are estimated in the tens of thousands in Ireland and the hundreds of thousands in France. The Church bears responsibility for the deaths of thousands of Indigenous children and the abuse of tens of thousands more in 20th century Canadian residential schools. Even as recently as 2018, the Diocese of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, was exposed for systematically covering up the abuse of over 1,000 victims. In 2022, the largest Protestant denomination in the U.S., the Southern Baptist Convention, was found to have victims of its own. An independent investigation found abuse had taken place at multiple churches, with perpetrators ranging from low-level volunteers to the former president of the SBC himself. Much of this abuse had been mishandled, according to the report, as victims rarely saw their abusers face consequences for their actions. The SBC has seen an unprecedented decline in membership in the past few years, and with this abuse finally coming to light, it's doubtful their numbers or reputation will be restored anytime soon. When two of the largest institutions bearing the name of Christ develop reputations for violence and the suppression of justice, Christ as a symbol suffers. Now, when millions think of Christ, the image of a peaceful, loving Redeemer gives way to that of a man who shows mercy to abusers, but never their victims. A symbol of peace and justice becomes a shield for those perpetuating violence. Wisdom to ignorance and deception. White evangelicals, one of, if not the most powerful religious group in the U.S., overwhelmingly supported the presidency of Donald Trump, with many powerful evangelical leaders calling him God's chosen leader or savior of America. His words on non-religious issues then took on a near divine status to them. If he implied vaccines were linked to autism, that became the evangelical position. When he simultaneously cried conspiracy and embraced pseudoscientific treatments for COVID, evangelicals followed. When he lost the 2020 election and claimed it was rigged, most evangelicals instantly believed him. Even as a man who has clearly never lived according to Christian principles, Trump became the decade's most influential figure in American Christianity.
Yes, you let me move. Strange.
I haven't got the will to try and fight against a new tomorrow, so I guess I'll just believe it that tomorrow never comes the same night. I'm living in the forest of my dreams. I know the night is not a safe routine. I must believe in something, so I'll make myself believe it that this night will never go. Oh, the night, it's my world. City light, painted girl. In the day, nothing matters. It's the night time that flatters. I live among the creatures of the night. I haven't got the will to try and fight against a new tomorrow, so I guess I'll just believe it that tomorrow never knows a safe night. I'm living in the forest of my dreams. I know the night is not as it will seem. I must believe in something, so I'll make myself believe it that this night will never go. You take my self-control.
When I really want, I can be singing every single time, spending it like my last dime. Give me that word, I we share mine. It's time to sink or swim, giving you all this attention, telling that violence to pick for you, baby. Just listen, listen. Every day, every second, every single time, spend it like my last time. Step to the beat of my heart. I don't need a whole lot coming from you, I admit. I'd rather give you the world, or we can share my. I know I won't be the first one to give you all this attention. Baby, listen. I just want somebody to love. I don't need too much, just somebody to love. I don't need nothing else. I promise, girl, I swear. I just need somebody to love. I need somebody to love. And you can have it all. Anything you want, I bring. Just to give you fine and things. For you, I be running 1,000 miles. But what I really want, I can find. Cause money can't find me. Somebody to love. Somebody to love. Somebody. Find me somebody to love. Love. I don't need too much, just somebody. I just need somebody to love. I don't need too much, just somebody to love. I don't need nothing else. I promise, girl, I swear. Somebody to love. You are the flame in my heart. You light my way in the dark. You are the ultimate star. You pick me up from above. Your unconditional love takes me to paradise. I belong to you, and you belong to me too. You make my life complete. You make me feel so sweet. You make me feel so divine. Your soul and mine are entwined. For you I was blind, but since I've opened my eyes, I'm with you, there's no disguise. So I could open up my mind. I always loved you from the start, but I could not figure it out that I have to do it every day. So I put away the fight, and now I'm gonna live my life, giving you the most in every way. Oh, I belong to you, and you belong to me too. Oh, you make my life complete. You make me feel so sweet. I belong to you, and you belong to me too. You make my life complete. You make me feel so sweet. Oh, yeah. Oh. I know your eyes in the morning sun. I feel you touch me in the pouring rain. In the moment
sour. You're my savior when I fall. And you may not think that I care for you when you know down inside that I really do. And it's me you need to show. How deep is your love? I really need to learn. 'Cause we're living in a world of fools, breaking us down when they all should let us be. We belong to you and me. And you come to me on a summer breeze, keep me warm in your love, then you softly leave. And it's me you need to show. How deep is your love? I really need to learn. 'Cause we're living in a world of fools, breaking us down when they all should let us be. We belong to you and me. You don't have to be beautiful
Ah, you.
to turn me on. I just need your body, baby, from dusk till dawn. You don't need experience to turn me on. Just leave all to me. I'm gonna show you what it's all about. You don't have to be rich to be my girl. Don't have to be cool to rule my world. Ain't no particular sign I'm more compatible with. I just want your extra time and your kiss. You got to not talk dirty, baby, if you want to impress me. You can't be too flirty, mama.
Can you imagine what my team's up to when I shoot me from behind?
I wanna be your fantasy. Maybe you could be mine. You just leave it all up to me.
Bleh.
We could have a good time. You don't have to be rich to be my girl. Don't have to be cool to rule my world. Ain't no particular sign I'm more compatible with. I just want your extra time and your kiss. I think I wanna dance. Get to little girl when it's paradise.
Ah, revenge. Stolen from me.
At your age, mama, not your shoes. Maybe we could do the twirl. You don't have to watch Dynasty to have an attitude. You live it up to me. My love will be your food. so nervous, avoiding all the questions. His lips are dry, her heart's gently pounding. Don't you just know exactly what they're thinking? If you want my body and you think I'm sexy, come on, sugar, tell me so. If you really need me, just reach out and touch me. Come on, honey, tell me so. Tell me so.
Let's spend that night together.
He's acting shy, looking for an answer. Come on, honey, let's spend the night together. Now hold on a minute, before we go much further. Give me a dime, so I can phone my mother. They catch a cab to his high-rise apartment. At last you can tell exactly what is on. And if you want my body and you think I'm sexy, come on, sugar, tell me so. If you really need me, just reach out and touch me. Come on, honey, tell me so.
I beat like a drum. Let's spend the night together. If you really need me, come on, you tell me. If you really need me, tell me so. Tell me so.
His heart's beating like a drum. 'Cause at last he's got this girl. Relax, baby. Now
Heart is beating like a drum. But now we're all alone. Heart beat like a drum. Now we all alone.
they wake at dawn, 'cause all the birds are singing. Two total strangers, but that ain't what they're doing. Outside is cold, misty, and it's raining. They got each other, and neither one's complaining. He says, I'm sorry, but I'm out of milk and coffee. Never mind, sugar, we can watch the early movie. If you want my body and you think I'm sexy, come on, sugar, tell me so.
Helt på.
Just reach out and touch me. Come on, honey, tell me so. Touch me. Everyone's feeling pretty. It's hotter than July. Though the world is full of problems, they couldn't touch us even if they tried. On the car, I hear Molly's hot on the block. Tonight there will be a party on the corner at the end of the block. You didn't know you would be jamming until the break of dawn. Nobody ever told you that you will be jamming until the break of dawn. You'll be jamming and jamming and jamming and jamming. Jam on. They want us to join their fighting, but our answer today is to let all our worries, like the breeze through our fingers, slip away. Peace has come to Zimbabwe. Third world's right on the one. Now's the time for celebration, 'cause we've only just begun. You didn't know you would be jamming until the break of dawn.
Get ready for Binks. Have you installed Minecraft yet? this lag? No, the map was... My bullets were landing and not doing any damage. And now it didn't put me in. And it still didn't want to load in my other browser, the usual one. I didn't jump over, but I went over. Revenge. Not you. Get you now. Plastic car. I should have changed. full revenge too. Long shot and a headshot. Ha! Nice. Oh damn, man, what's up with this fucking game tonight? Asshole. Oh, where'd she go? Ah, invisible man to go out. Nothing was landing on him again. While I'm selecting weapons, yay! It's amazing how that time he didn't kill me before my shield was down. Rivalry wall. Okay, now I can use a proper weapon. Change my loadout side over. Probably yes. Really? Come on! Through her head, I hit the fucking container behind her. Bitch. No. Here's us. Get out of the fucking way! Bitch! They see where you're shooting, jump in your fucking line of sight, and then they still miss the target. I almost wondered why the Pokemon weren't dropping. Really? What the hell's up with this thing? Look how it's jumping. If I turn any more resources off, I turn the whole fucking thing off. I can't wait till I have my new internet. It's just too convenient that all this shit starts again today. Look at our scores though. Wow, I come back to my base to find the enemy in there. Where are my guys? Okay. Wow. Watch these guys now. Oops. Wow. It's not the line though. Okay, so it's all fucking game clearly. Three more. Tongue in the air. Really? Nearly my whole clip in his head, nothing, but the other one turns around and kills me. Wow. Yes. What the fuck are they doing on the game? Wow. Wow, this thing's jerky. killed something. Oh, wow. What a crapshoot. No, they should make plan for shit like that, dude. It affects us. Fuck, one more, really? Let's just get it over with. Ah, what am I doing? Wow. Really, everyone's only going through one way? Wow, didn't hit him once. Fuck me. Watch, half the skins aren't loading. Oh, wow. Look at this. Oh. Really How are they killing anything? No matter which side I go to, this big. Oh wow, get him! This is a joke. Yeah, it's been 6 days since the fucking update. How much more of a period of time is it gonna be unstable for? Three new bugs, let's go see. Bullet's trajectory doesn't match sights in campaign mode, okay? Not only in campaign mode. One day, so many glitches and bugs. I noticed the game began to noticeably slow down and freeze. Yes, it happens that it does not register hits. Yes, and at the very beginning of the match the game just slows down very much during the first shootout. Yes. I see people bitching about how they just reset our orbs, which I agree with. Fuck, I'm finished with my daily. and I'm gonna get off here for now. I'm gonna switch over to the other side. Get an hour or so in there. Thanks for your company. See you in a bit.